That's Mill Run.
Let's have a roll call.
Right.
please.
Tim O'Connell,
Here.
Aaron Kelly,
Here.
Tracy LeBlanc,
Here.
Doug Rowdy,
Here.
Matt McCarthy,
Here.
and Justin Wood.
Here.
All members,
Thank you. Approval of the minutes, Scribner's error there. Oh, approval of the, yeah, that's what, approval of the agenda. Then we'll,
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
okay,
I'll second with the Scribner's error corrected.
that's the next one.
What's next?
This one,
But
this-
the agenda is wrong. This is the agenda.
Okay,
The agenda is all wrong. So the agenda has the correction.
You know what?
Not
Okay.
minutes.
It has the September, take it off. It's got January.
So it's still wrong.
She did the red on there.
Right. Yeah, but it should be here too.
No, it'll work there.
Okay.
All those, okay. Was there a second? Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor then? Opposed? None. All right. Public comments.
minutes,
Now the minutes. I thought we fought that. Approval of the minutes from January.
I'll move. I'll move. Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded that they were all right. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right. Now public comment. Any public comment? None. How about now from a supervisor? Mr. Hall, nothing? Jay, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. NORTAC, who is doing the NORTAC update?
Isn't that usually Doug?
I thought Doug is still on
Yeah,
that.
Doug, he does them.
He doesn't usually, so he isn't here yet. All right, well, we'll just leave that part open. Number 8, we'll get with the forester and his stuff that is in here. Let's get wrapped up there.
Hey, morning.
Good.
So we'll start with, I believe it was Roland mainly. I don't know, Claire, if you can scroll down. It's, this one's in the packet, not the Twister one.
Should be page 5 in the packet, I think is the first one.
Yeah, I can go up and we'll start at the top one there. All right, so, this town of McKinley parcel, it's just a 2-acre strip and right off of 285th. Accesses a pretty large block of county forest, law and road lands. There's the town road ends and then goes into the snowmobile trail eventually and forest road system up there, at the end of that road. But this 2-acre piece, I believe, was brought up in the administrative report, extra parcel for surplus county lands. But it does provide a service for the county forest system and also recreational users. They use it by parking on the road there to access that south block. Otherwise, they have to do a pretty big walk around to get into that block. So it's pretty good. It's a good parcel for recreation, and also it's kind of a fallback for us to be able to punch a road in there for forestry operations. So it's one that I recommended to keep in the county forest law system, so that wasn't misplaced or off-footed on the county side. So I just kind of brought it up for discussion if it's something that you'd be interested in enrolling it. This is the application is in there. Few pages down, I think, past the maps. It doesn't necessarily need a resolution or kind of the county procedures right on the front page in the bottom left. Just essentially putting in the legal description, parcel ID number, etc., the acres to enroll, and then it just has the county board chair as a signature and the clerk as a signature. And I essentially send it in to the state and enroll it. So some, you'll see, in the town, some stuff that will change, like the town severance, McKinley's gonna get an extra 2 acres on their severance share. That would be like the only change on that end in terms of payments, but
There's no cost to this right now. We're not buying this land.
no, we own it. County owns it. Yeah, it's not in county forest law though.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So we just need it so that we can do the road. What's on both sides of it? Is that private land?
Private lands, yeah, it's like a 37 acre and a 40 acre. So I'm
Okay.
assuming the county, I don't know if 60 years ago they sold off that piece, but kept that strip to access that county forest, or I'm not sure what happened there, but I'm assuming that's what happened. Something like that, unless they bought an easement right from that, from a landowner back in the day. That's all I know on that, so.
But an easement rate is different than actual ownership.
Not
So
easement,
we
yeah,
actually-
or bought us, yeah, or
Yes.
bought, yeah, not an easement, yeah. correct.
I mean, I'm
Yep.
clarifying, thank you.
Nope, yep, so. Yeah, I just thought it was a good piece for the county forest system to have in perpetuity for access there, so.
So then you just need money to make a road on it.
We'd put that on the loggers, so,
Put it on the loggers. There you go.
but yeah, it's essentially, it's just, there's a trail there. We'll use, and the private has posted both sides of it so that nobody goes on their land, so.
Sure.
Yeah. The reason there isn't a road currently is because some of the landowners to the west allowed access so that we wouldn't build the road. So, but if that goes away or change land ownership, then
Then you need-
we could be in trouble
Okay.
getting access to all that.
Access through that 40, that's
Yeah, there's
better
a lot of, yeah, and there's a lot of acres, multiple 40s.
on the
yeah.
bottom. All right.
Yeah. As hard as it, yeah, I had to kind of do a zoomed in just because it's so small to be able to actually see it. So
Sure.
apologize. But yeah, I was just gonna get a motion if there was
For this, yes, let's do them separate.
if there was support there to enroll it.
Anybody have any more questions on this part? Not, I'll entertain a motion then.
I would move to put this 1.99 acres into county forest law.
Okay.
Second it.
Seconded from Doug was next to me. Said, all right,
Right.
hearing no more questions. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. That one went through.
Right. And then the next one, the other application is for the Lorraine land acquisition that we purchased from the Ice Age Trail Alliance. This is required by the grant application within a year that we have to enroll it. Unless we want to pay back probably the grant, but I'm assuming that's what would be the repercussions. So,
Sure.
yeah,
And that was the
Also-
intent of buying it also, wasn't it?
yep, correct.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I was just gonna get a motion just to have it documented, as well. So I don't know if there's any other,
Is there any other questions? Anybody would have? This one was kind of, we went through it when we bought it. Pretty good.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve is from Sharon to put that into county forest. Is there a second?
Second it.
Seconded by Tracy. No other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. There. Now that just has to be signed by the clerk and, oh, all right.
Yep. or Shabana. Yeah, or Shabana and Jay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And then, yeah, then I can send that off to get enrolled.
Timber sales.
Timber sales. So I didn't get included in the packet this morning, but I provided a printout for you all. I think Shabana said it'll go in the minutes to the packet. So yeah, 2025 timber sales. I kind of, the first 2 pages are just vicinity maps, essentially where they are. So we have four timber sales in the town of Sterling and 2 in the town of McKinley. So we'll have red pine, jack and oak sales, just straight oak. Actually, no straight oak sales. Aspen, jack pine, oak, red pine and sterling. Then, town of McKinley will be hardwood jobs. More of a red oak, white oak, mixed hardwood pulp. There's 385 total acres that are gonna be out for bid. And the minimum appraised value is $255,700 between the 6 sales. We generally, our appraisals too are generally pretty generous or low. Let the bidding kind of determine the market. So do foresee that there being an uptick in sale price or bid price. So kind of the process. Well, this is these maps are what I will send out to the vendors. We'll include bid sheets for each timber sale. So we'll send them off for about a month for review. We put them in the paper, put them online. The DNR generally shares it as well. We'll give them a month to send in bids and we'll have our bid opening set. We're looking at mid-April right now to do a bid opening. I don't have it set yet. We're just kind of playing the snow, right, for people to be able to access some of this stuff. Some of it will require some, especially the town of McKinley, a lot of traversing and walking from parking lots. So it makes it a little more difficult when you got 3 feet of snow and they can't see our wood that we're selling.
Sure.
That being said, well, yeah, we'll bring we don't need a motion or anything for sales here. The motions for each high bidder, will be coming in the committee meeting during after the bid opening. So
that would be
that's when we award
April, May.
tentatively April, May. Yep.
Okay.
So I gotta time it up with have the bid opening. I try to do it like the day before committee meeting
Okay.
so that the next day I can award them. Otherwise, they might have to wait a month
Sure.
to hear the results. So
Okay.
ideally, I'd match it up. So that just talk through it. It's probably going to be May for the now
The
that
bid opening. Okay.
because it's so early in the month versus otherwise, or we can turn around in March and try to do it in April. So
Okay.
we'll kind of play it by ear in the next couple weeks and
Sure.
see what we're doing there. But yeah, successful bidder, then, they get them awarded and then we build the contracts or I build the contracts for each timber sale with the successful bidder. So with that, is there any questions on I know you haven't had much time to look through them. I don't know if you want to go through them or not.
We want to go through, we do it more at the sale time or whatever.
Yeah, I would think so.
I think more at the bid time, we can just, because then we do each one separate then.
Mhm.
Each one separate.
Yeah. So I think we should go through it then. Now this would just be the starting point.
Yeah, because
Let's go through it twice.
correct. The only thing would be with if there was, something or a correction, right? We already sold, this is what we're selling. So if we sold, or if this is what we're advertising, so if we change something, say that we went through it and someone had something to say on one, that's where it gets more difficult for changing a bid.
Sure. So
But there's nothing to, yeah,
nothing really to change yet here until you go through it, like you said. Be safe.
yeah.
Okay. Let's do that. And at time of sale, we'll just see if there's any extra acres or less or something on one or what.
Yep. But yeah, this will be, as of now, this is what's in our system of what we're selling, so.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll be a pretty big bid opening, I'm assuming. It's over 1 million, I think it's around 1 million board foot of just sawlog, timber, so
Cool.
we'll see how tariffs and all that stuff go too.
Yeah.
The timber market. It could be some shy bidders for the next few months.
It's a lot if they can't import it.
Good, but it's also gone down.
It's also go the other way. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the hope anyway.
Okay. But any other questions?
Yeah, or if there's questions after, feel free to call me.
Sure.
It'll be on the minutes to packet, so.
Okay,
We sent out 7 landowner letters, adjacency landowner letters. We're gonna be harvesting in early December. I had no phone calls or,
Sure.
nothing, so. Haven't heard anything that would be contentious anyway, so. All
all right. Sounds good. Thank you.
right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. What about our subdivision stuff? Should we do it? Let's go. Let's give her a hack.
Yeah, I think Ed's gonna come up too for this part.
For that, there's some of that, okay. There isn't quite as many changes and stuff, is there?
No,
It's got some, I know Ed had some things in there that he wanted.
I don't think I have anything in there. There's just on the packet. We can start on, page 25 and 26 of the packet.
There's some changes ahead of that. I would like.
Yeah, I think those are more with Ed. So if, once he gets up here, we can.
Oh, okay, I apologize.
Just some of the definitions. Okay. How far did you jump?
Yeah, it's
Survey required, that's for Ed, all right, yep.
page 15 and 16 of the actual ordinance.
Can I
page
ask a
25.
question before how did we go from redoing the shoreland ordinance to now we're looking at subdivisions in general?
Yep, I'll explain that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you explain that first, so we know what we're looking at?
Yep. So this table is directly related to the shoreland areas. In those areas. So this, as far as the shoreland ordinance, you can't be more restrictive on your lot sizing in the shoreland ordinance. As far as the subdivision ordinance, there can be a county minimum countywide that can be administered in the shoreland ordinance. So, and these are based off the lake classifications, which has been brought up to be, or it shouldn't be in there at least, because it's restricting the size, requiring greater sizes than what the shoreline ordinance would for NR 115, the model ordinance. So that's why this whole table is being removed. And then the note down here is, in order to bring that back, we need to discuss what the minimum lot size would be for a private sewer versus public sewer lot. So if we scroll up a little bit, I guess we can, so does that make sense on why this is being addressed in the shoreland because, or in the subdivision, because the shoreland is specifically being called out in the subdivision ordinance?
So you have to be uniform throughout the whole county. So if we say 1 acre minimum, the shoreline would be 1 acre minimum. And then we would lose that 20,000 and 10,000 because there isn't room for an acre. So we would end up 90% of the lots around the lake would be non-conforming.
Yeah.
So that's why he's taking this out and we got to decide the 20 and 10 again. And then that would be countywide. And then if a town has a 1 or a 2 acre minimum or whatever, they get to do whatever that way. You see how that's working or not? It's a backdoor to,
This is affecting
Yeah.
shoreland.
Yeah.
That he decided to
Take
address
it out of
this.
there.
He decided to address this, then we're gonna, and there's a couple other things to address, but he decided to address this before we rolled into shoreland.
Yeah.
That's why.
Because we have to be
Even though last time we started at shoreland.
Yeah.
throughout, yeah.
Because,
Okay.
yeah, so it was brought to our attention that anything in the subdivision, we can blanket administer in the shoreland, but because this is specifically calling out the shoreland, it can't just be in our subdivision and then be more restrictive. So it either has to be the whole county, something countywide, or it has to be just the shoreland ordinance. It can't be in another place, but only affecting the other ordinance. And so that's not arguably legal to have like that. But just to clarify further, if you could scroll up to the next page, or sorry, down.
But should we discuss if we want to stay with the 20 and 10?
Yeah, I'll explain. So this.
Oh, for the next, one, two, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the current table as far as the zoning districts go.
Here, okay.
So there's two different, well, currently in the ordinance, there's two different things that are impacting the size of the lot that would be required. It's the zoning district and then how that table goes into the shoreland. And it states up above that the minimum dimensions, if you could scroll just a little bit higher.
Minimum lot size dimensions.
Mhm.
So the minimum dimensions for each zoning district in the county comprehensive land use and the shoreline regulations. To go back, the minimum lot size of each lot created shall conform to the minimum dimensions for each zoning district in the comprehensive land use and the shoreline. So that's stating that both are being impacted here. So currently, if there's an R1 lot, or if a property zoned R1, as you see in this table, it's 1 acre for both public sewer and without public sewer. Whereas the confusion has come up many times is then folks will go down to the second table and go to the shoreline and say, well, down here it says I can be class 1 lake with a public sewer, I can be 20,000 square feet and 90 feet in width. So it's contradicting each other.
Mhm.
And it's also, like I said, this table's also has possibly some legal issues with it being, once the lake classification and everything was removed, to not be able to administer based off of that. So we would need to cover both sides of it, because if we left that table up there and a property is R1, we would still require the 1 acre based on that above. So as far as staff looking into this, you could do where any lot that's public sewered in the county would be a minimum of 20,000 square feet. Just trying to think through, scenarios, or if you guys could think of anything where that would impact. I think most of our R1s are either around the class 1 lakes or they're near villages or, some sort of,
Sewer plant, there isn't very many.
yeah, or,
Well, what do we have for sewer districts? There's Lake Magner.
Wapple, yeah, Bear Trap,
Yeah.
Magner. So there's not a whole lot of public sewer, but it would impact areas outside of the shoreland that are R1, or I guess any lot outside of the shoreland areas would now only have to be 20,000 square feet instead of the acre that we currently administer, or I guess we normally say the acre in general, but there is a couple zoning districts. If we scroll back up here to that other table, you can see that, Hamlet has the 30,000 square feet minimum lot size, and general business commercial currently has a half acre with the public sewer. Hamlet has 10,000 square feet with a public sewer. So if we just changed this whole table to have a line here, and if we wanted to say, or we could do it a different way too, to make it more clear, is anything with a public sewer in the county would be required to be 20,000 square feet. And then without public sewer, these can remain, we can change or keep these the same, but then the 1 acres would be on this side of the table. So it's a little confusing exactly, or I can see where it could be confusing, but most of it is just deciding the impact or what exactly the end result would be by saying 20,000 square feet for all public sewer lots in the county, in our areas that are our jurisdiction. I don't think it's like I said, I don't think it's a huge impact the number of properties that would be affected. It would be a change if the committee wishes to keep the 1 acre minimum on any future development along those public sewered lakes, then that's where, if you didn't put this in here and just said 1 acre regardless of the zoning district, that's kind of how it's being done now, unless there's hamlet or general business commercial in those areas. But like I said, most of, or the ones that I'm aware of that have a sanitary district are R1, which this table is currently requiring an acre for those zoning.
So would we be better off just putting the 20,000 on R1? So, I mean, I have honestly zero idea how much it would affect a hamlet, but I would hate to all of a sudden put people in non-conforming that didn't do anything, you know, I mean, if,
Yeah, just about all of them.
well, right, that's what I'm saying. You would put anybody, you know, that was, if you change it to 20,000, all of a sudden whoever's in a hamlet district, they could potentially be in non-conforming. So would we be better off just adjusting the R1 to the public sewer of 20,000? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I think that could be.
Don't we currently have 10,000 on public sewer and 20 on sewer, isn't it?
That's that's in the shoreland ordinance. That's in the model NR 115 for the minimum.
That was the
standards.
model.
But the county's always had
Had the 20.
these standards along with the shoreland, or not always, but that's what we currently have.
Yeah.
Logan, Chair, if I could just call your attention, I believe you all received a public comment from a realtor, Mr. Hanson, on this topic, requesting that change for, with public sewer to be the 20,000 square foot. Yeah. To draw your attention to that comment.
And I think to touch on, Supervisor's Garvey's comment is, I think we could do, you know, leave these because we would be administering those countywide in those specific zoning districts. So I think that would be okay to do. I'm just trying to think on the
wouldn't create a conflict.
conflicting side of shoreline versus this.
Well, general business, it's only, what, 1,700 more square feet. So if it was 20,000, it's still pretty close to half an acre. And the hamlet's at 10. If that was 20, I mean, those top ones could all be 20.
Right, but do we want to change the hamlet? Is a hamlet an issue? That's my only thing, is why do we want to make things more restrictive if we've already got
Yeah.
something that's not a problem? That's my only question.
Yeah, and I don't think
Yeah.
there probably isn't an issue with that. As far as having it certified, to not conflict with being more restrictive than the shoreline ordinance.
Because that's as far down as it could go.
That,
Hamlet happened to be
that one-
in a shoreline that's in the shoreline, so we would still be safe.
yeah,
Okay, so we're not stepping on
so
that.
yeah, I mean, I think it could be where public sewer, you know, change the residential to, if you're in R1 with public sewer, it's 20,000 square foot minimum countywide in R1, regardless of shoreland or not. And then that will be a blanket minimum rather than just in the shoreland areas.
So that without public sewer, do we have to up that one or leave it the same?
That one will probably be the same because that's
Leave it both at 20,000?
that.
Leave both.
No, this one would be 20,000 without an acre, as most of them, I
Okay,
guess not all of them, but most of them are an acre minimum in the county currently that aren't hamlet or yeah, I guess hamlet's the only one that allows a current lot to be less than an acre in public or without a public sewer.
but without a public sewer, we go around a lot of the lakes, they won't have an acre. That's why we have to reduce that side too, without public sewer. They go around Bone Lake, Deer Lake, those lots aren't a full acre.
Yeah, but this is going forward. So I mean,
Yeah.
this is how it's been for a while.
Okay,
So any new lot on Bone Lake or whatever is required to be an acre right now, so that would stay unless you would like to reduce that to 20,000, but I
okay.
guess,
So it won't change the old lots to non-conforming.
correct, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Just a question if the general business / commercial B1, if that was, do we have lots within the shoreline district, back lots on like Wapo or something that would be have businesses on there that we'd want to put that at 20,000 also, so that we didn't. That back lot wanted to be a business that wasn't stuck to an acre.
Yeah, so I think that's where if we keep it the way, or, oh, down on this one, you're saying to change
No, the next one.
Yes.
this one here?
Yeah.
So if we keep it the same, currently they would be on a public sewer in a situation like that, they are required to only be a half acre. If they're on a private sewer, they're required to be an acre right now.
But that's minimal, so
That's
most,
minimal.
that's minimal.
Existing lots will be able to stay the way they are. And like, for example, in an area like that, they could zone it to business. I mean, all of those pre-existing lots remain.
They can just change it to that zone.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, right now, the way the ordinance is set up, the only place that the 20,000 square feet is allowed is in the town zoned areas that don't have one of these zoning districts with them. So then the only table they're following is that shoreland ordinance. There's not this overlying zoning district or underlying zoning
Underlying.
district that's affecting it. So that's where it's just trying to clean that up. We do get a lot of questions on the many different tables that discuss lot size.
So then the towns are gonna have to go through their regular zoning to make sure, because if they're following this goes away.
Yeah, so if the towns have their own shoreline zoning, or I mean, we have their shoreline zoning.
Yeah.
Then, like it was prior, most of them did a blanket like RA5 district in those shoreland areas. But that's where it would be a conversation with us in the town to determine if there's lots they already know that are general business commercial, instead of just blanketing the whole RA5. We wouldn't want to do that, because if the use is already being used as general business commercial, we would want that to be done on this side of it rather than having a rezone have to come through for that side of it.
That's what happened on Highway 8. Some of them lots because of the bonds and
Yeah,
stuff that we had
yeah.
to do. So the towns have to go and look at their maps and update them. And try not to miss stuff. I mean, they were Jason went through them too, I think in 22, they went through a lot of it. But there was still some that fell through. In St. Croix Falls, wasn't there a couple? One or two, wasn't it, on
There
Highway
might-
8,
yeah.
and another one somewhere. So, okay,
So is there consensus, the basic cleanup to add 20,000 square feet to with a sewer, public sewer, to have that cleaned up for staff and
On R1.
On R1.
Just our-
in R1?
yeah, what, yeah,
That's what I'm saying. In sewer,
I think so, because if we leave that acre, how many are gonna be?
I mean, without public sewer, it's been 1 acre forever,
Yeah.
but with the public sewer, to make that clear, now that the lake classification table is going away, to add that 20,000 square feet.
It isn't going away. Or we'll really be in trouble. Though it is, for this part it is. It's just, it goes away in parts and stays in parts. Okay, so that would be 20,000 on that with a line there, all right. So then that one on 16, that whole thing would almost come out, wouldn't it? You could just
Shoreline table would be removed from the
from that,
subdivision.
so this, okay.
And if we want to go back while Ed's here now,
Yeah, let's go catch up to the front then.
page 3 of the ordinance, 13 of the packet has a major subdivision highlighted. The only change was that major subdivisions may require state DOA approval, and that was, what was the main reason? Ed? Because,
There's no reason to have to go and state for county plat, really.
okay.
So it really just, we can take care of that ourselves and The state does not need to review a county plat.
Accounting plan,
Yeah,
okay.
there's no reason to have that additional review.
So instead of shall, it's got the may in there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's simple. Any questions on that one? Okay.
And then there's just some, chapter 236 was added on page 4 for 14 under cemetery and assessors plats. So that was just a addition of chapter 236, 032. Just kind of clearing that up. And then I think the last part in the subdivision ordinance is just, the survey required section. Which I think was originally brought up, by Supervisor Garvey as far as, I guess if you want, do you want to explain exactly?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my whole concern was, and I use, even though I'm not in the process or right now of thinking about remodeling one of my barns, but the parcel line goes through my barn. If I were right now, if I'm understanding, and I've had a couple complaints from landowners, if I wanted to do anything to that barn, because it's on the parcel line, I don't meet setback requirements. Therefore, I would have to hire a surveyor to combine the parcels to make one parcel. Then all of a sudden I would have meet setback requirements. And I think that's really, I think there's a better way to do that, especially when I own both parcels, and one of the people that I've talked to is like, I own 200 acres and they're saying I have to spend $3,000 on a survey to just put it on one. Is there a better option? And so this option, as if I'm understanding it correctly, is the fact that they are going to record, and the fact saying they're using the subdivision application, and I pulled that out, and I do have some questions about it, but that's, I guess, before I go that way, that was my whole point is, can we do this without requiring a survey? And it was brought to my attention that it's possible we could add it here where we talk about putting a statement on the deed that these parcels in essence cannot be sold separately without being surveyed then at that time. That when they're looked at, they're considered one parcel. That's the background. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What, did you ask the tax about how the tax part works?
I did not. I mean, because honestly, the surveyors, the tax assessors have no problem figuring out how much to tax me and where to tax me. So I didn't even, and I know there's, I mean,
Well,
you
if they
flip
do it
through the
on-
mapping, you flip through mapping. I mean, there's plenty of places where people own two parcels and they've got a building through the middle of it or close to it. So obviously assessors are figuring this out. They're just, okay, this one goes here and this one goes there. And that's just simply what's happening.
So that it wasn't a problem now?
No.
Okay.
Again, I didn't specifically ask, but I said, I haven't seen any issues with my taxes continue to go up and that my buildings have been properly assessed.
That might change that though.
I noted, but okay. I mean,
No,
hey,
they're assessing your farmstead.
no, because I've got a parcel with my barns
I know what you're saying.
and the two barns, even though half of one is on a different parcel, it's all on,
One,
they're all on the same parcel.
and your house is on the other part.
Correct.
So that's where mortgage companies and all that have to figure that out and not us. Because if you went to get a loan against it or something that's on two different parcels, you got to mortgage both. Or
I
whatever.
did when I built it
You did?
and no one had any issue.
Okay.
I've been last summer, no one had an issue.
Did you get a permit?
Yes, I did. Paid my $200 ag permit. Thank you very much, Supervisor O'Connell.
So yeah, I think what we have proposed here is we did have in the current ordinance that a survey is not required for the sale or exchange of parcels of unrelated owners of a budding property. From what I recall, that was, or why it didn't have related or same owners in there was due to the possibility, or maybe it was happening in the past where for some reason, property owners kept moving their lot lines for one reason or another. And for when Steve at the time was reviewing these over and over, it seemed to be where he was like this, as far as what I remember, that it seemed kind of like more work than what, or someone comes in next year, okay, now I want my lot line to move to here, then here, then here. So it was, I think that's why they cut it out at that point. But as far as speaking with Ed on it, I don't think see an issue with necessarily allowing it for that situation either. So it'd be the arm's length transaction, as long as additional parcels are not created and the resulting parcels are not reduced below the minimum lot sizes. And then the legal description, or the requirement of the county review before recording, and then the completion of the Polk County subdivision application along with the review fee.
Well, my only other question with that is, if I own both parcels, I don't understand how it can be an arm's length transaction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the arm's length transaction, I'm not really for sure why that term's in there. I mean, if it's adjoining property,
Right.
abutting,
Yep.
it's adjoining, that's,
That's the point,
yeah,
kind of,
that's,
yes.
that's the point. They have to be adjoining. I mean,
Right, absolutely, right, that's right.
So,
So can we strike the arm's length transaction? Because to me, it's pretty hard to be an arm's length for myself.
yeah.
Some days I would like to,
So no, that doesn't bother me.
We're striking arm's length.
So we probably strike arm's length because we probably don't have a definition of it anyway, do we?
Nope.
And then it would just roll right into, yeah, if additional parcels are not thereby.
Arm's length out. Okay. And it is reviewed so that we're safe that way, okay?
Yes, and we want to review those legal descriptions just because we want to make sure that they're correct and because
Sure.
especially if they're not just taking two complete parcels, because sometimes they're adjusting between two, but they're adjusting the property line.
Right.
And I've seen attorneys make a mess out of stuff, so let's just
Right.
have them.
Have the
review it,
review.
And everybody's better off.
Yep.
Right.
Have the review.
And that,
Okay.
and then also the people that want to do it, it's okay to have it reviewed to say, okay, yes, and your deed needs to say this.
Yeah.
So then it's legally recorded that this is what your deed, I mean, to me, it just, there seems to be a better way. And then when I was pointed to this, that's why I was kind of pushing it, like I said, and I had three different complaints or two different complaints about why should I have to hire a surveyor to redo this into one parcel when,
And it all depends on how they're adjusting the property line, because they will need to have a surveyor at some point.
if they sell.
Depending on how they're trying to adjust the property line, because sometimes they're not just combining two existing parcels.
Correct.
They have those two large ones, and I just want to take part of this one that attach it to this one. And
Correct.
you can't just
Do that
go
either.
around the shed, as a legal description. So you need a surveyor to give you that correct legal description.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess my point is that we're just putting these together. So
Two forties and combined.
and combining together without going through the legal process, official process of a survey.
Yep.
That was that was how the argument was explained to me as well. So thank you.
And then I guess to go back on A there, that was a request from Ed to include in there that CSM or plat shall include the remnant parcel from which the lot or outlot was being created from. Because I know that question has come up for him quite a bit, that splitting the lot, that the remnant does have to be surveyed as well.
That basically took effect in 2018. We just want to make sure it's clear and it's very obvious as,
Sure.
so we just take out half part of the phone calls.
Okay.
I think that's it for that.
Stayed the
Or
same.
actually, there's on page 20 and 21 ordinance, or 30 and 31 of the packet, I had highlighted a couple sections there of a discussion point. I know it got brought up during a previous variance that came to the committee here. Tried to look into that a little bit. It's referenced a lot in here, so I guess I haven't touched with, or spoke with Corp counsel on that, but as far as the committee being the one that hears a variance to the subdivision ordinance rather than the BOA.
I think that has to be changed. I have that. The CUP, I think because then we'd have to change the BOA and our procedures too. Variances to design standards and stuff is the BOA. Because then if you go through it, then it says it's appealed to the court. Well, that would be the process then.
There was a reason the committee took those variances back in
Took them and
17 or
then we
18.
put them back into the BOA.
Okay. Legally, I think, as long as they follow that mandated process
Well,
wherever.
then, so there's an appeal process. You have to have an appeal process for this too. But it should be, the committee, I think, we don't,
act as
we're the planning and everything, and if it's a variance, it's a BOA.
I guess if that's the way we're able to go, it could be where, in the definitions on page 1, that's where it actually defines the committee, which that's where it specifically states that the committee is the Environmental Services Committee.
Yeah,
So
so this where
it would need to change on,
it would be the BOA may grant variances. Yes, I think we'd have to add BOA there.
and we can look into that just to confirm that that's the way that it should be. But I know that got brought up during.
Because we've changed the BOA structure too and stuff, what we did to a rooming house back and forth. So I think that's where this variances and everything go to the BOA. The committees does conditional use, special exceptions, but we don't do variances. Well, I don't think, we've never done one that I know of. So it would fall under that. So I just think in that section where it says it, you just have to put BOA in there.
Okay.
A and C.
All the way through. D is on there too.
Yeah.
Because then you get down to the end. Any of these decisions go to the BOA, all E. Administrative appeal or any of that, that's how that goes through. If you have any administrative appeal, it goes to the BOA. Well, I think that whole section we better check our BOA stuff, because that's how we set that up. So
We will definitely look into that.
yeah.
Otherwise, I think that's all, unless there's questions on the subdivision ordinance.
See if I marked any. I didn't mark any more, so then we can jump to general. Page 41 in the packet.
Yeah, so the general one's fairly quick as well. Most of it is definitions they're in blue, so they were moved from this general section that used to house all of our definitions for the following shoreline. We have moved those definitions to be directly in the shoreline, so anything that isn't referenced in the general or the following district section of the general, I have in blue and struck to a general area at all. It's all relating to shoreland areas, such as a boathouse, shoreline protection area. And I left shoreland and some of those other ones in there because they are directly referenced in some of those districts or in like I think in the mobile home park section and travel trailer park section, they are directly referenced. So it doesn't hurt to have them in there, I don't feel, if they're being referenced in there, but some of these other ones are only being referenced in the shoreline ordinance, so that's where they would move to. The retaining wall one would be completely struck from the general or definitions and moved to the shoreline ordinance as well. But-
Both
Yeah, because
I'm
there's
looking-
retaining walls.
That aren't on shoreline.
that are.
Yeah, so, and that we can go that route. I know when we brought it up the last time, it was,
I think it is.
determined that because the language stated with only 300 feet is when
Oh,
but I mean, it is a structure, so I mean, it can be enforced everywhere. But that would just be,
yes, it should be. It has to be enforced because you got subdivision, storm ponds. I'm back on page 4 too, where we took out land use runoff rating. I think that has to stay in the general also. change, doesn't it?
I just couldn't think of a situation where we would use it because
Huh.
we only use it in the shoreland areas if it's impervious within 300 feet of the shoreline, which would be covered in all shoreland areas. So I didn't think it would be relevant in the general, but
It's used around subdivision though for roads and stuff. I mean, we can use that runoff curve. I don't know. Eric, do you think we use it around those roads and stuff? And, you know, so you put too big of a road or something in, I mean, that's impervious surfaces. You have to have some runoff curves. It's indirect.
relevant in that evaluation.
Yeah,
I would influence.
Like in the development across the street from me where they're building 40
Yeah.
units, they've got a big pond now where runoff goes. There's a plan where that water's going. Not sure yet, but
the subdivision plans have to have
Yeah,
stormwater
yeah.
and stuff, so maybe that could stay.
Does it hurt to have, as long as the definition is the same,
yeah, it
hurt
doesn't.
to have it in both
Yeah.
places?
Cause you're dealing with lakes. Doesn't matter if it's a runoff pond.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it eventually gets to a lake. That's why they have watershed deals. You know, it's the whole watershed you want to protect.
but as far as, yeah, zoning would be considered, we would never use it in this instance. It would trigger the stormwater stuff because that would be considered a man-made body of water. We wouldn't be all of a sudden say that's shoreline because somebody created a stormwater pond, but it, like I said, it doesn't matter if it stays. I just didn't
Sure.
necessarily being used in this section, but there's no stays in here either.
So then back on page 6, do we take marina, the general? Or provide docks location, more watercraft, do we take that out of the top of the page? Steve, that one,
oh, yeah.
You know,
we should probably, that should just be in shoreline too, shouldn't it?
I know. And that's just.
We can move that one to the shoreline. Trying to think if it referenced it in general, but I don't know why it necessarily would. It wouldn't make sense to, but.
Yeah, that's kind of, I read it, it didn't look like it made sense.
So then as far as the retaining wall, that would, keep a definition in the general for retaining wall. And I guess that'd be to be determined on what that definition is. We have a definition in the shoreland, proposed as an accessory structure created to, hold back earth, I think is how it's stated in there. We'll get to that, but we would just keep it the same definition that we end up having in shoreline then.
But you could take out within the 300 feet of the ordinary high water on a riparian parcel. And then it would be retaining walls are usually constructed from whatever. If it's in the general, just take that 300-foot line out. Or leave it in so it's in both, I guess, too. That line would almost work without the 300-foot, wouldn't it? Stay within the 300-foot of the ordinary high water mark on a riparian lot out, and then retaining walls are constructed. Or however we want to.
If we're gonna do that, we should probably reference that the definition is slightly different in shoreland.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole problem. If you have
Yeah.
one definition, one word, and it's got two different definitions, is depending on where you look. So if you're going to strike
Change
that,
it.
which I think, I mean, I get it, because you can have retaining walls everywhere, but then you have to reference that unless you're in the shoreland, then it needs to be within 300, whatever.
Or just
Maybe
leave it the
it's,
same.
maybe it's just
Or
a
just leave it-
parentheses or a note at the end of this. that-
Something,
that,
yeah.
Some within 300 feet of the shoreline.
Yep, go ahead, Doug.
Well, on retaining walls, I just have a question on what is the issue over building a plank retaining wall or the, seems like the boulders keep coming up as a issue.
Yeah, so where the issue is the single row of those materials not be considered a retaining wall.
Understand?
So, I mean, if somebody's behind the 75-foot mark where the setback is required, the retaining wall can be made of anything. I mean, there's no restriction as far as,
What about within the 75 feet, they're building these retaining walls down for runoff and different issues right along the water. Why is that such a big issue?
because it's considered a structure. A structure, it's not exempt in the,
I guess I don't understand why, if you're saying stacked timbers or concrete, it seems like you're singling out boulders. I don't, I'm just lost on what we're, because you go around the lake and you see them all over. Why isn't that, I'm not explaining this correctly because I don't understand it. I guess,
So is this related to shoreline or is this outside of shoreline? I think that's maybe where we're getting hung up on it. Because this general,
This is general.
general,
Outside of shoreline.
so if I have in an open field and I'm building a house, are we restricting the retaining wall? I think that's where I'm getting hung up, and Doug, maybe that's,
oh yeah, I know we discussed that before. If you're talking about, you're out on a 40 and you build a wall, are you gonna walk down here and get a permit?
yeah, and is there any restriction? And is that what this general is covering? Because shouldn't the retaining wall in the shoreline ordinance cover the shoreline portion and we don't need it in general? I guess that's my question. So why are we worrying about a retaining wall in general if it's in the shoreline and the county has jurisdiction within 300 feet of the ordinary high water, or of the shore, right?
1,000, yeah, or, yeah, you said the shoreline area?
Or
Is-
the shoreline ordinance pertains to all the shoreline in the county.
Yep.
So this is not part of the shoreline ordinance. This is separate. This would be outside of the shoreline ordinance, correct?
Correct. It is a little bit, because your general ordinance can also be applied in the shoreland in certain cases. But that's where the issue arose, is because the definition for the retaining wall is in our general, but it's specifically calling out the shoreland area within 300 feet. So that's why it's proposed to be struck from here and just move to the shoreline. So I think that's kind of what you're getting
That's where I'm saying we can just strike it, leave it out of there and leave it in the shoreline so that it's not crossing over.
Question is there a need to have a definition of a retaining wall in the general ordinance? That would be the question.
Question, yeah.
Is there a need? I don't know the answer to that.
I guess, are they regulated outside of the shoreline area?
Good question. Are they?
I mean, as far as the size, I believe there's, yes, once you get so high, it requires certain specifications, but
That gets into stormwater runoff, right? I mean, if you're, you know, then they're gonna tell you as far as what you need for retention and what, you know.
Kind of separate from that. It's more structural outside the shoreline area. And I think what Logan is alluding to is, you know, if they get so high, there needs to be some engineering involved for the integrity of that particular structure.
Right.
But when somebody wants to build a retaining wall on their 40 acres around their new house they just built, do they have to get a permit for that wall?
that's where this current definition is exempting at least the single row out in that, from how I can read what's currently in there.
That's.
Whereas it would likely be, I guess if someone came in and asked us, we would consider it an accessory structure. But it doesn't have to be something that,
So if you build a house and you have walkout basement and you put a retaining wall on both sides of your walkout,
Yeah,
you need to come and get a permit for that.
I mean, but that's where I think was trying to currently know the way it is in here. Because that's why it was written in there like that, where outside of 300 feet.
So if we strike it, there's no permits required.
Correct.
And then we revert back to the shoreline ordinance for anything within the shoreline district.
then we don't need it in here.
Right. So he was right to
Strike
start
it,
with that.
yeah.
Just because we do retaining walls in general doesn't mean it has to have a definition in the general, because it's not in
You don't-
essence.
So that way just strike it.
Yeah, it would depend on the definition
Breaking
of
it.
accessory structure.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's not.
Long way to get back to where you were looking, but.
Yep, go ahead. Doug.
A little differently. We have a, letter that came in actually from John Polk.
Yep,
Yeah.
right here.
What exactly is he asking for? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, we can, do you want to cover that now in this section?
We were dealing with retaining walls otherwise.
I think it.
More short.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, should we wait till we get to the shoreline?
Yeah.
Because we took it out of here. Let's stay with general, then we'll jump into shoreline.
I just
Okay,
ask it again. That's
yes, yeah, just so we don't.
Shoreline.
You got it, Mark.
I guess, but. what's- I'm still confused as why we're looking at this whole thing was about shoreland.
Ordinance review season, Mr. Kelly, is for all ordinances that you
Yeah.
guys oversee.
This is
So,
last.
Wrapped
We
in.
just ran out. So
we just wrapped them in, so.
But if you change one, you have to change the other.
We're cleaning up language
Yeah.
in some of these that is redundant and said over and over, so like.
So we really are doing a rewrite
No,
of this.
no.
No?
No.
Okay.
So we struck this because it pertained. to
I get it
300
why
feet.
we struck that one, but
Okay,
I'm,
but you have to go through all of it and find all the spots that are wrong,
okay.
that go to shoreline. So we're trying to get that. So shoreline stands on its own
Okay.
and general will stand on its own. And now we got too much intermixed, I think, yet. So if you see anything else that jumps that you think goes, this is bizarre, let it fly. All right. So the next one, you have some blue on transient lodge.
yeah, why do those have two different definitions? Tourist rooming, transient lodge.
Amount of people.
Yeah, it's only,
But what, tell me the difference between, because one is a single family dwelling in which sleeping accommodations are offered for pay. The other one is a single family dwelling rented on a short-term basis. So,
so the main thing is where they're allowed. So tourist rooming house is allowed just with a permit in most areas. A transient lodge requires a conditional use permit. So that's where they split them up. So like if, I guess I don't have that section because up here, but there's sections in our ordinance that residential, what's allowed, tourist rooming house is underneath a permitted use, whereas a transient lodge falls down into a conditional use permit. So they would come here for a conditional use for anyone that's looking to rent out, which essentially it's the same definition, but once you get over a certain number of people, the past ordinance has it where that is triggers a conditional use rather than an administrative
You have to have
permit.
your setbacks and
So-
everything to accommodate that many people.
Because it's in blue, you're saying move transient lodge to shoreland?
Yes, that's the only place that I recall that it's referenced in those specific zoning districts is in the shoreland area.
So it isn't in any other general one.
But if it's listed as a use, then you don't need a conditional use permit, do you?
And it's listed under a conditional.
If it's under a permitted use, then you wouldn't need a conditional use, correct?
So is it listed as a use in general?
That's where I don't think it is. That's why it's proposed to be struck from this section because I believe it was only meant to restrict the shoreland areas for those types of uses, not the general area.
Okay, so that's struck.
Or moved, yeah.
It got moved, yeah, all right. All right. Now the viewing corridor was the next one.
Yep, that got moved to,
It got moved.
yep.
It's about that just definitions were taken and then.
There was one in the But we have the general section that has definitions and everything you have in your packet, and then it goes into the districts. It was brought to our attention that there was possibly could be just considered a Scrivener's error. Better to pull up that document. I think it's labeled section 42-148. That would be a good time to just get that updated. I can check to see if it's able to just be corrected or not. So underneath the Board of Adjustment in the general section, this is currently, it reads, the Board of Adjustment shall have the following powers and duties. And then it says such appeal shall be taken, but that's supposed to be down here from what I can tell, underneath administrative appeals. And then it goes into who can do the appeal, and then that such appeal shall be taken within 30 days. So it's just, some reason it's sitting up here currently, which it's not really in.
It should be on the
Yeah, it
bottom.
should be 2 underneath 1 in the other location. So somehow it just got,
Moved around.
somehow it got jumped up there. I don't know why, but. Then I think we could go into the shoreline section. So all the definitions in the shoreland are in blue because they weren't specifically in the shoreland before. They were up in the general. So that's why they're blue, because they moved into this section. The green is additions from, proposed additions from staff. We can go through the definitions, or we can go through them once we go through that section that deals with them. I guess that's up to you.
They were all getting out to where the retaining wall one is. It's not what.
Well, for professional.
Was one of the public comments. Who is considered that person?
That would go through the Department of Land and Water.
So that's where,
Licensed engineer or whatever, yeah.
in the last proposal, we had it just stated as a engineered plan, so we would have to complete that. After discussing with Eric and Land and Water, it was, brought up that maybe all projects won't need necessarily an engineered plan, but we would like some sort of credentialed professional to be supplying that. Which this is the definition we currently have come up with. And if Eric wants to touch on that, he can. It's pretty straightforward, just trying to get some requirement for the plans that they were submitting to show that that person is credentialed.
Yeah, the intent based on the thought process was to, receive plans from someone who's been proven and proficient in erosion and sediment control practices. Okay, they've been trained. They're familiar with federal, state, local regulation and permit process. And they're familiar with the practices to prevent and mitigate soil erosion. There's a few trainings and certificates out there that are available. And it would be up to, I guess, a case by case basis as to which one would apply, and that would be a decision of the zoning department as to the applicable credentials, or if the credentials that the individual designing the plan has are suitable for that particular site design. In some cases, on a really sensitive, risky, complex site, a professional engineer might be involved. In other sites, it could be a simple DSPS erosion control certificate, or in most cases, I think, a certified professional in erosion and sediment control, and that's a CPESC certificate. And Those are pretty valuable credentials, I think, for those folks in that business and would add value and efficiency to the review process if we're involved, because they would be trusted and proven and we would be able to follow their plans. I hope that helps with the explanation.
So Eric, basically what you're saying then is if, so say like John Hall is this, I mean, this is his work.
Yep.
He has already considered that credential professional with the guidance of Land and Water.
They would hold that credential and design the plan. They could provide those credentials to zoning and land and water, and we would consider that in our review process, and it would help us again, season understanding that they know what they're doing and they've been proven and have experience in that space.
I mean, because then it wouldn't bog down your time in Land and Water completely, you know.
Correct. It would create efficiencies on our end, and I think those individuals would be a little bit more credible, and we wouldn't have to go through the design plans with such a fine tooth comb.
Okay.
So
These do change because I used to have one, because a plumber could have one. And the state moved it around and took it away from us, yeah.
It took his away.
You went
So
went to all the classes. Yeah, went to all the classes, had it for 2 years, and they didn't give you your money back either. They took the $500. Tough luck.
I'd just like to reiterate, one of the questions was, who can get those? And anybody who takes the training and passes the test and keeps up with their continuing education units
Keep one,
can
yeah.
keep one. Yep.
can I ask a question about the definitions? Because it says the blue are information was relocated throughout the ordinance. So that means the shoreland ordinance? Relocated throughout the shoreland? I mean,
Some of them were moved from the general, as you just discussed, into the shoreline.
yeah,
And the others were moved, I think, from the back to the front into another location within the ordinance
within
itself.
the ordinance itself, okay.
So they're all in one spot.
So all of these are in the shoreland ordinance now, okay.
Okay. The next green one is the functional apparatus, that great DNR. The great DNR, how do they explain things?
Chair,
Yes,
questions, but on the definitions, just, were there any words changed in the definitions, or were they just moved?
most of the ones I read were changed, did we change any of them?
The ones that were changed should be in green. If you see an area that didn't get put in green or red.
Just thanks, I just clarification.
Okay, yep,
Following.
because I read through a bunch of them too, and I think they were all the same. But they didn't get changed, okay. So if we catch one, yeah, perfect reason. Okay. So the next one is on, page 4 of page 62. I think. Page 1.
Yeah, so that
There's 2 pages.
So that's referencing the setback averaging section later on, defining that an unenclosed accessory structure such as an open deck or patio, if built in conjunction with the principal structure, is allowed to be at the reduced setback.
I didn't see that in the model ordinance. That's something we just added.
Correct. Yep, that was in the comments from the DNR. I asked the question about how the setback averaging, because it is right to the principal structure. So if somebody has a setback average of 50 feet and they want a deck on the front, I asked if that setback average could be to the front of the new deck, or if there's just, that's where your dwelling's at and the deck is, you can't have a deck. But that's where, if we have this language in here stating that at that time of setback averaging, if your setback average is 50 feet for your new structure and you want a deck, you can put your house at 60 and a 10-foot deck out to that 50 feet. Granted, you're foregoing that 10 feet where you could have a dwelling or part of the principal dwelling, but there is an option there to still have the deck at that location.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yes. There too, all right. All right. Next page of your screen. If that answers it, it doesn't, it just gives it that, it's just an option, so.
Yeah, it allows us to allow a deck out.
To let it go out to that, okay. Land disturbance.
This one was added by staff to include or to clarify some of the sections in filling and grading, that section that's coming up here. So it's kind of a general definition to include all types of filling and grading, clearing, soil disturbance, anything, any activity not limited to those activities. Currently, we have a section in the filling and grading that touches on the landscaping and then filling and grading. And the way the proposed section is now, I feel like it would be more clear to have the title be land disturbance rather than just filling and grading, because we have more than just filling and grading in the section itself. So it's just a blanket land disturbance section, which then includes landscaping and filling and grading. There's some differences there.
That's another one that it doesn't list that in the model ordinance. So I was just questioning why we added it.
Okay, we good with it?
Necessary.
Change anything?
No.
You know, that under navigable waters, just back to the comment earlier about talking about retention ponds and stuff. Are retention ponds considered navigable waters?
It shouldn't be, no, if they're man-made.
Get different names for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess that's because you're talking about the retaining walls in them subdivision. It has nothing to do with the subdivision or the pond that is in the subdivision, so I guess it's just confirmed.
Yeah, it's, yeah. It does, it's, yeah.
Yeah, I would, yeah, that's fine.
So. Your question, retaining wall is on this one, isn't it?
There.
We're there. I'm on page 7 of 54.
65.
65 in the past.
Says it's required to be changed by the DNR model. It's not in the model ordinance.
Which one?
The retaining wall one. It says it's red, so it's required to be changed by the DNR model ordinance, but that definition I didn't find in the model ordinance unless I missed it.
Okay. Doug has his question too.
Unexplained.
Page 7, it's in the blue, it's in the new definition. Retaining wall means an accessory structure constructed to hold back earth. So it's way different than that other one with the one wall that doesn't have any of that in there.
No.
So the definition that was in the general and currently being enforced in shoreline areas was recommended that it may not or would not be certified by the DNR due to the specific language, the way it's read.
The DNR language on site, it has several different meanings depending where you go on DNR's websites. But they all come back to our retaining walls are structures designed to restrain soil on steep slope.
Can't go any further than that. That's your division.
Yeah.
We have that. It's from Tracy has it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it said remove from original definition within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark. On a riparian parcel, retaining walls are usually constructed of stacked timbers, concrete poured, blocks, planks, steel, or boulders. And then it says, a single row of these or landscaping boulders are not retaining walls. So
DNR is saying, retaining walls are structures designed to restrain dirt, hold back dirt.
So even if it's one boulder high, but the boulder's this big and it's holding back earth, it should be considered a structure. It shouldn't be exempted by a definition, is what they're saying. Yeah.
But in their model ordinance, they don't even have a definition of a retaining wall.
Correct.
Yeah, I think they put it just generally to just not have to do anything. Is that kind of what you think?
Yeah.
Well, and
They made it so general that it's, here we sit.
So that's where, I mean, it
So then.
doesn't have to be
Restrictive,
here.
that's
It's just that
they give a shit, yeah.
if we want a definition of a retaining wall in here for everyone, then the one we currently have won't work. But I mean, you don't have to have one. I would advise it's,
But it says here, if it's in red, it's required to be changed by the DNR.
yep. So if we keep it, it has to be changed, but it doesn't have to be in there.
oh,
It has to be
so
changed to
how do you
what?
regulate them?
This is the right, what you have on page
In red.
65, that is the correct one, or that has to be changed if we keep it?
This is the one that would be
Acceptable.
approved from that one general. So that's what the change was
The
from.
change, you're talking the change is coming from the general definition, that is not acceptable. This definition on page 65 is acceptable.
Correct.
Correct.
Certification.
If you keep it.
This is the one that's so broad it doesn't cover
And where does
anything.
it say that DNR is requiring that? I mean, it isn't in the model ordinance. I don't see it in this.
It says any structure.
That they're requiring it be removed as currently defined.
That, or that this one in red is the correct one that we need to have moving forward.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to explain as far as this specific definition isn't what has to be in there. This is what I think this is the most general it could be, I guess, for that. But the whole thing doesn't have to be in there at all per the model ordinance. A lot of counties have it in there, so when someone asks what a retaining wall is, they can have some sort of definition, but it doesn't have to be in there. And if someone comes in and asks staff what's a retaining wall, we can just tell them it's something that, an accessory structure constructed to hold back. But no, you're correct. It's not required to define. But NR 115 has no definition.
But the definition in the general is too broad.
Is,
Too specific.
yeah, you could, either way, I guess, yeah.
Specific, yeah.
Yeah, it's the other way. But I think where it falls under, in 115, it's anything man-made within that is a structure. So if you look in, it's under something else. If you start reading around, it's under the definition of a structure. It's patio decks, boom, retaining walls is in there, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're trying to define what a retaining wall is. That's what,
Yeah, so
leaving it pretty open with this one at least,
on
I think.
on page 2 of this or 60 of the packet, an accessory structure, which that definition is straight from the model ordinance, has retaining wall listed in those that are considered.
Yeah, under accessory structure.
Correct.
Okay, that's what it was under. All right, I know I read it somewhere. So it's in there, but it isn't.
We should
It's-
leave the definition because it's an accessory structure. So leave it in there as a definition, but it's as vague as it can be, so it's not,
Yeah,
it's less restrictive than what it used to be.
it's. What they're trying to do is define anything going back dirt then is, anything you do is an accessory structure. So,
Yeah, and this is just a definition. This isn't restricting it in any way. It's just the definition.
It's just the
Retaining walls,
Yeah.
accessory structure.
Because like they were talking to one rock, if you put it one rock around for,
Right here.
say, a fire pit.
Yeah.
Do I need a permit or do I do it around a flagpole? Well, is it decorative or is it a retaining?
Versus.
Well,
Yeah.
You know,
but
then
this
it's
is gonna
common
be more
sense. Somewhere
restrictive
down the
than
line
we
has to work,
have it.
you know, what it is. Really, is that what we're thinking, Doug? Okay, all right. Cause that's how we were, that one rock thing was just crazy, wasn't it? Or not?
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
But I knew it was in definitions kind of. But maybe have retaining wall and, you know, put a line behind it and say it's an accessory structure. So at least it's in the
But
definition.
this is just a definition. There's
Correct.
gotta be another spot where it lays out retaining walls, right?
Yeah, the restrictions around a retaining wall.
It's not required, but I mean, I think a lot of areas do. That way people, when they come in and ask, or it's clears it up for staff, what are we considering a retaining wall? It doesn't have to be in here. It can just, you know, staff discretion on what a retaining wall is, but
Or do you have site-specific things? I don't,
That's where we'd have to come up with a definition or something that's gonna work, right? I mean, that's where the one rock thing and all this has been such a headache, I think. There's no true definition of it. This just says if it's built, it's a retaining wall.
But it's an accessory structure.
Yeah, so that,
So then there's the accessory structure is the one that's gonna carry the regulations.
yeah, the 204 feet and all that.
and that's where the currently is our definition says it's not an accessory structure, whereas the model ordinance specifically says it is an accessory structure, but we said if it's one boulder, it's not. So they're fighting each other.
Banging heads.
So here, we're fine to leave it as a definition and move to the next portion.
Well, they could actually, we could just, where it says structured old back earth or whatever, but just you put accessory structure behind there, so they look, well, no.
It
doesn't
says
do
it
any
right in
good.
the definition.
Doesn't do them any good, but
Retaining
that's where
wall
it's
needs an
related.
accessory structure,
Okay.
structure to hold that. Yeah.
So was the concern coming from Mr. Hall, the fact that since, even though part of the definition it's always been an accessory structure, but there was additional definitions, so now if it's an accessory structure, it'll be more restrictive. Is that the concern coming from Mr. Hall? And I mean, not that, I'm not trying to say that he gets all the clout. He's in the business. He's making some really good, you know, he's called out some concerns. And I was just I personally am like, so as we're saying, well, it's really open, but is the problem that now it's an accessory structure instead of a defined thing, that then it's going to be more restrictive as far as doing this? Is that the concern?
Correct.
right.
Because all structures that aren't exempt have a 75-foot setback.
So, but a retaining wall was in essence considered exempt in Polk County
By our definition.
by our definition.
DNR says it is not an exempt structure within the 75-foot.
That are,
But there is places where a retaining wall does make sense and is beneficial to have.
And then you get a variance.
So
then you
that's
go to the
what,
Board of
that's what the
Adjustment.
process is. You need to get a variance to put the retaining wall, and then we don't worry about the one rock wall height thing situation or anything.
And how many people are really gonna know this?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Some people are gonna have to hire. That's my question. No.
Go ahead.
We've, in the past, we've seen pictures where there's we brought in actual pictures and we see the cabin up here and they put in this rock wall to, maybe Eric remembers this, but it was for drainage, to make it drain away from the Dex Pearson's cabin and go down and goes over the rock wall. So every time they build one of them, they're gonna have to go through the Board of Adjustment.
No, I think it's part of your erosion control plan. If it's used for mitigation on erosion control, it's all combined within the same, build,
In the same permit.
in the same permit.
So
So
how do we get around it? If it needs a retaining wall in that 75 feet, they have to go, if it's in a stormwater plan,
it would be,
accept it or not?
if it's falling underneath the exempt section, which we can go flip to that section that states exactly what's exempt.
Stormwater permit for mitigation runoff, I mean, that would keep it going through the Board of Adjustments. That one, okay.
So underneath exempt structures, there is the section that says a device or system used to treat runoff from impervious surface.
What page?
Sorry, page 94 of the packet. And then number 7.
And somebody's gonna have to go to understand this, they have to go look up 59.692. Whatever. And the other one, so they understand what the requirements are based on that, those two documents, right?
Yeah, or likely it would be a discussion with either zoning or land and water stuff, what is,
So there's your
What is considered-
credentialed person would have to know the runoff stuff because there's a, what is it, TR 14 now they go by, or TR what?
There's other.
There's a couple other deals too, that they have an actual computer plan that does it for you. TR 14, isn't it? Is that the newest? Yeah, 114, there's one that I know we do for bigger, towns and stuff, you know, for a subdivision, they punch it in for all the runoff.
So.
But that would exempt it, so we'd have to figure that out if that, so if they needed runoff and mitigation, they wouldn't have to go to the Board of Adjustments and they can do that.
well, not every project, but
Not every, but I mean, it would do some, wouldn't it?
yeah, I think that would all be based on the plan that's
On the
submitted.
plan submitted.
If
So if
retaining
you did need
walls,
one or something, that would kind of help it.
if retaining walls the only option,
Come and do this.
I guess that would be decided at the planning time of.
Sure.
Yeah, it's potentially a component of a larger
See, that's what I'm saying.
erosion
you're
control
kidding.
plan.
That's what I'm saying.
Right here.
That particular item is not typically incorporated into treatment practices in most cases. Not saying it can't be incorporated, but it's not typically an approved practice when it comes to mitigation.
Okay.
So is it common for the DNR to conflict itself? I'm not trying to be snarky. I'm just truly, because I did just look up the comment here that Mr. Hall had, and it absolutely is very clear, word for word from the DNR website, what a retaining wall is, and they totally roll it back to going to your local county zoning. So, but then they're telling you, well, you can't say this, but on here, they're saying, well, but it's up to the local guys. So.
To make it up. Yeah.
Right. I can believe that the DNR does conflict itself, but that does make things incredibly difficult too. It says a retaining wall is a structure built above the ordinary high water mark meant to reduce land erosion due to steep grades. For a project above the ordinary high water mark, natural vegetation is preferred for stabilization, steep slopes and bluffs. Retaining walls may be appropriate for areas that are actively eroding and are subject to zoning regulations in your local shoreline ordinance. Contact your local county zoning for local permitting requirements. So this is saying that local county can do it.
Yeah, so the big difference is they don't talk about setbacks. So they're just talking about a retaining wall, whether if it's 100 feet from the lake, 200 feet, that's a retaining wall in their definition.
Above the ordinary high water mark.
Yeah,
Correct.
anywhere above it.
So then you go to your local shoreland ordinance or shoreland ordinance. I don't know if that's referencing directly shoreland. It's just the DNR's definition. Our local ordinance is required to have a 75-foot setback to that is where that.
Yeah, it says are subject to zoning regulations in your local shoreland ordinance.
Yep, so we're all required to have a shoreland ordinance, which in what we're being advised is the shoreland ordinance that we have has to deem that a structure. Structures have to be 75 feet back from the water. So that definition doesn't obviously,
Well, it says ordinary high
water
water
mark,
It doesn't
right.
say anything about
That's
75.
75
Correct. It
feet.
says how
We
ordinary.
have 75 in our
that's
ordinance.
because anything
That out.
below the ordinary high is completely different. So they're saying anything above that meets that definition is a retaining wall. Whereas you go, okay, that's a retaining wall. Now you go to your local zoning office and say, well, I want to put it at 20 feet. well, then that's when the setback's 75 feet.
We don't necessarily have to have that set.
Setback is
Because
75.
every
This
piece of
DNR
property-
document totally clarifies it out. It says retaining walls are not one of the identified exempt structures that are allowed within the required 75 shoreline setback from the ordinary high water mark. They must be avoided or authorized by a variance if the standards are met.
So they're saying there just has to be a so they would have, so it would just be a variance because you're gonna, at times, I'm sure, need
Oh,
some sort of,
Absolutely.
so we're just then adding, I'm not saying you guys are doing this, okay, I'm just, but so we're just adding more cost
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
everyone.
That's by, but when you read that one, it said if it's needed to hold back, that's soil erosion.
Right.
So that would be an exempt because that's if a wall is holding back the dirt, not to run into the lake, and it's in one of your, as a structure to hold back. I wouldn't think you'd need a variance. I think you'd have to go through the plan better is all. See how I'm looking at it that way? That if you had a good plan, okay, so the wall's at 40 feet back or 25, but it's keeping the whole hill from washing in. That would be on a plan. Why would you need a variance for it if that's what you need to do anything on the lot?
Correct, and that's where,
If the plan is good enough, that would exempt it and you could do your walls or whatever.
I think that's.
And that's would be your storm water. It would be part of the storm erosion control plan.
if that's the only, so if you have a.
It's the only, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's due to the placement of a structure, then you're saying now I'm eroding it because of the structure. That's where the plan on the front end might be the retaining wall and everything would be better further back.
Yeah, but that's where, if they had a plan to show how that would work.
Or if you have a vacant lot that's eroding on itself without any structures
Yeah.
there, I think that's what that's covering is stop that if a retaining wall is the only option or an option. And
But
that's where,
give a builder or the owner that option, okay, so I do want to put a deck on the side of my house. And I don't want it to walk out. Okay, so can I put a retaining wall to hold it? So I got a deck up here. Otherwise, the whole hillside is gonna wash down. So you'd put a wall in. Well, if that's part of your stormwater plan, a retaining wall or it's like a land dam out in the middle of a field you put in to slow the water down. I mean, would we need variances for that? That's kind of what I think John is looking at.
Yeah.
Do we need all these variances?
It sounds like it still would and need a variance. And those design plans and how that particular structure is incorporated into the larger design and plan and how it's suitable for minimizing risk and erosion, stormwater and things like that would help in the variance approval process. I would.
Sure.
Then we can look at, I mean, if too many of this stuff is going to variances and all that, I mean, one thing, I mean, because we don't want to put a tremendous amount of cost onto a builder or anything like that way. We'll change our fee to go to the variance for a retaining wall to $100. I don't know.
Well, that's how you incorporate it into an ordinance when it goes to the board of adjustment too much.
Does it need to go?
When you have 100 of them,
Right. Does it need to go there as a part, or is this a specific project
that we can define it.
that needs a
enough.
variance versus an entire project that would not?
Question, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, go
Are you
ask.
guys gonna still have at your next meeting that open discussion? Because I think you guys could ask a lot of landscapers to come in and really tell you in the real world what's going on. Is that still gonna happen?
I think we might have to do that the way it looks.
Because there's no
Because
way,
there's so many just little weird,
public comment, there's no possibility for me. I listen to this. I'm not a landscaper, but I see it on hundreds of jobs. And I just feel like there's no way during a 3-minute public comment, you could discuss how complex and all the nuance
Sure.
of this. I've been sitting here listening to all this. I'm gonna wait until that opportunity to bring your committee in and bring the John Halls in, these guys that do this every day. So you really understand the nuances of what one word they're putting up here and what the impact it really will have on. You're talking hundreds and hundreds of projects. You guys don't really probably totally grasp what a couple of these words mean. So as long as that's gonna happen, I'm
well, I'm thinking we're gonna bounce through this and not be here all day. and then probably have that meeting because,
Thank you.
just amongst ourselves trying to get it in some of the letters. There's a lot of different
Yeah. It's not-
ways to go to get the people that do
I
it
think we
in here.
should have a meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I see a lot of things in his email that are just, it's gray.
Yeah.
This is gray, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
there's.
but we read the DNR and it makes it gray or
The
Yeah,
DNR
the
conflicts
DNR.
itself.
it
Not
does.
fun,
That's the worst.
not fun.
They tell us to do one thing and you do it, and then they say.
And
you
that's
can't.
not fair to these guys either that are
No.
trying to,
Yeah.
do their
No.
job.
Yeah, and I think the last thing to say on that is where I think a lot of the issues rise, but not all of them, is if someone's looking to build a house as close to the lake, but they have area to move back, I think it may be tough to prove that a retaining wall has to be at 40 feet because the house wants to be there rather than the retaining wall setback of 75 feet would work just fine at 75. That's where, that's kind of,
That's where we have to sit down and,
every site may not be suitable to put your house at 40 feet.
oh,
Like you
correct.
say, if that's what the setback average is, okay, I can do it, but now we need huge retaining walls because we're building it on this, steep slope. And then you say we need them to do it, but there is a suitable location to build without that, in that location.
Well, that's where the variance stuff would come and like we're saying, if we get too many variances, now we're just really muddling the waters.
I agree with Chris. I think that it should be some
Yeah,
people in the field coming in to give us some scenarios, because we're unaware of what's out there.
yeah.
So,
Well, and then, like we said, you look up a definition on that DNR site, now you look it up on another one, you look up a
Yeah.
county's one.
Yeah,
You
so
look up
different.
Bayfield, you look up
Yeah.
Sawyer, and you just go like, where the hell did this come from?
yeah,
There's so
yeah.
many weird, when they tell you to make your own up, and then they say, well, verify it, that's the worst part, because then we send it, and they say no, then what?
Start over.
We just sat here and did all this for nothing. So I mean, we gotta come out and to get it to work somehow better.
Have you guys done the work plan already for February to have that public input? Have a draft agenda ready to go for that, but I'm just waiting for approval on to
Okay,
worded correctly. Public
sure.
Are we
Because
safe to say that that's a work in progress, still that retaining wall thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because like, we just, how many different? We all have a different,
Ew.
and then the DNR's got a different one there. a
Right,
different
and
one
we
here.
still have to have something that zoning and land and water can live with and work with, and that
Yeah.
this is the rule, and we will stand behind them, administration
Yeah.
can stand behind them on it too.
Well, not only that, but what is fee structured and what is not?
Right, I
You
mean,
know,
all of
I
it,
mean,
but I mean,
If
Well, it's clear enough.
everything,
Yeah.
you know,
How do you administer? Maybe.
And that,
yeah,
that next meeting is gonna be structured so we can have people having a conversation, not just
Yes.
30 minutes.
That's what I'm setting it. I mean, one person can't take it over, but
No,
if
right.
there's 10 people here, we'll get some comments. We'll go through it almost like we're doing.
yep,
And then we can ask questions as we go too. So,
Yeah.
but we can ask them questions also then.
yep.
As we're sitting here, I can turn and say, okay, what do you think of this? Why is it this way? Why isn't it?
Yeah, perfect.
So,
And just lastly, something to consider. Large goal and objective of this is to obtain a certified ordinance. So, falling within the guidelines and this item is a piece of that. So
yes,
it's an effort to,
right,
try and get closer to DNR's rule and the process will be vetted, no doubt, but that's.
to get to that, yeah.
Did we ever hear back from the DNR about their attendance at a meeting?
She was not able to attend this meeting. I have a phone call with her this Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Which I was gonna ask this question and ask how their process on expediting and what they're doing with it. So I get some contact with that. So I have that call at 8 o'clock on Friday.
Okay,
It will be slow,
yeah, it will.
just to let you kind of know it's gonna be slow.
I think getting information from the contractors and whoever is great information. The DNR doesn't want us to hold the public hearing on the ordinance until they had a chance to review it and get their comments back to us. So that meeting on the 19th is informational meeting.
Yeah.
Not a
would
true
be-
public hearing,
No,
But as soon as we get,
a good draft.
a good draft, we want to get it to them so that we can get their comments back to make sure it'll get certified and it's all.
And get our 20 pages.
But I will ask Friday about the retaining wall and
okay.
the shells and the wills and the maybes and the should nots.
Jeez.
Language.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was that one. What are we at? Transient Lodge, we're going back, page 8. Do we have to go through all these now? Oh, we gotta get to Transient Lodge one. You still wanna go over that one again or not? On page 8 of 54.
So yeah,
That's where it got moved to.
Yeah, yep, no,
We're
I'm
good?
fine as long, he clarified the difference between the two. I
Okay,
personally think it's odd, but okay. As long as we understand there's a basic difference, I'm good.
so now let's jump the other thing that was general provisions is where we have to take out where it says the towns in their own zone.
That's what I'm just looking at.
Yeah. That's something they wanted struck everywhere, wasn't it?
Correct.
That was that. So that's except for towns with their own zoning. Under the general provisions. Have we worked on that? To beat the band that we gotta take it out?
Yeah, we worked on that. It was,
I mean, because of,
we had approved, two attorneys worked with us on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Whit Malaya and Adam both worked on that.
we had the wrong 2 attorneys, I guess.
I
We got a
guess.
new one now. He'll tell us if it's right. Don't just get this in here and not get it out of us. So what are you up to date on this, Joe?
I'm getting there, certainly. It's-
Okay, but this was something they wanted struck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, their email was this shall be removed.
Oh. Well, then it's gone. Let's go to the next page.
It doesn't say it in this one. It just says a town has
I mean,
no
I don't think
authority to
that's gonna-
regulate any of the
It isn't
seven.
changing anything really. Because the towns have their own stuff. It's just, we can't have it in there, I guess, which, you know, why would we make it clear when they don't want it clear? Is that how that works?
Seems to be working. On the
Yeah,
shoreline.
is that- I mean, we want to clear it up, but then they say, no, you can't clear it up.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's the next page 2 is those.
G has some, just a addition of
Yeah, just to
clarification.
meet the setback.
Yeah.
I just marked, I still like the numbers instead of it. The number 2, number 4 there, if you student jump it out, but that's not a big deal. All right. So then, the bunkhouse pretty much stayed the same, didn't it then? Did they leave that alone?
And you said, last meeting, I said we.
So we left all that alone?
Yeah.
Okay. So all the bunkhouse stuff got left. All right.
Kim, what page you on?
I am on page 10 of 54, 68 in the packet. Because there's no color there. The only reason mine are marked is I like the numbers, so I just hit where it says a number, I put my line on it. So it says 1 bathroom, 4 accessory buildings, 2 accessory, whatever, I hit those. Then the district, that's that town zoning stuff comes out. On page 11 there. The packet number would be 69.
Yeah, that's what we need because I don't have those.
Bracket numbers.
You don't have the big number?
No.
Oh, you have 11?
No, we just.
Oh, you don't have that number? Oh, okay, 69 then.
Yeah.
Is the zoning district. So then the town zone 1 came out. That next page is just that too on page 70. The blue is for reference numbers to update those, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's the wetland district. Now, the blue here got moved for allowable uses. These were the ones that were in there. There's no added or taken out, was there?
There may be some slight language changes that, and from what we had to what the model specifically has. So what we have, what's in here now is exactly what's in the model ordinance
For the allowable and established, okay.
for the shoreline wetland district.
Okay, so that's 70.
How do we know what's been taken out then? Because we were just told earlier that nothing was changed. How do we know what words were changed?
Yeah.
Identify that?
Oh. Yeah, well, we might have to take an old one and just go by and put it side by side. You see if anything was, how much was changed.
Well, it's hard to even take an old one because whole sections. And you don't know where it's.
This one allowable use would be in the old one. You know, it doesn't matter what number it is, it'll be.
Well,
under
that number one on allowable, under D1, that whole section was redlined in the last version.
Because he was moving it, because he was moving it.
Yeah.
The red
It wasn't
line
being removed, it was just being moved out of that section.
It
Okay,
got moved here.
so now it's blue.
So what we can do is
Correct.
between now and the next meeting, we'll just check that and see if it's what was changed. It looks almost the same, but there might be a few things. So that's just on allowable use. Okay. I'll do it.
Just moved it for flow.
Well, if they would use,
Change.
they have that capability in Word to show you what was moved on the side thing, and what was changed.
You know that stuff. I go through the copies. So that's the allowable uses that were in the model ordinance, word for word, pretty much. Okay, but then we'll just see what our old one was and see what changed.
Yeah, I just went through it quick. I didn't see anything, but yeah, I can go through it with the
Let's just double
closer.
check so that we know. Okay, so that's those 3 pages. 73 doesn't have any changes. The wetland portions, those, yeah, the spawning, that stuff all stayed. On 74 would be what we added for the tourist rooming house. And advertising.
Yeah, and I put a note that any actual permit needs to be updated so they can add, that information is entered on the permit and stuff too, not just advertisement. But when they apply for a permit, they should have to put that same information on that permit, right? So you
Yep.
guys know?
That's on D there, I think, or that's what the intention is, that's covered under D, the vendor location identification.
On the land use permit, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
I
on the
see
green,
it.
see that, yeah,
Yeah.
that was added, okay.
The hard part is I was trying to find on Airbnb, I haven't found where there's a specific number you can search by. It seems like it's always the title, but I don't know. So that's why I left it identification details, because I didn't want to say listing number, because I can find one, but maybe I'm not good at Airbnb.
Yeah.
But
And they might not, they could be on something else too.
Just as long as it's a detailed description,
Something-
so you can search by it. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
Yep, okay. Our conditional uses, that stayed. The Hamlet district, does it have anything if we change the square footage? No, it just has heights. We didn't change any of that.
yeah, there shouldn't be any changes in the actual district beside just referencing changes to the, if the numbering, when the numbering changes.
When the numbering changes, okay. Ag district stayed. Jets, family, one. Farmland preservation stayed and that new one was just approved. So. Small business, we didn't add any to that. And now we're at that, page 30 of 54, or no, it's 88. I'm sorry, guys. That town zoning, that part came out. That 42 to 49. That whole thing. Boy, I don't know why that can't be in there to
I,
describe, don't you, too?
yeah, I don't know why either.
I just. Cause that's not in the general, that isn't in anything, is it?
No?
What's that, Kim?
I'm
Town
looking
zoning.
at that 42-249. Remember all the troubles we had with that, the explained town zoning? That whole thing they didn't want in there. I wonder, Joe, what do you think of that? That we put that to clarify, can we put it in like the front of ordinances or just one ordinance, or how would we do that?
So I think the belief was, and I think Mr. Loso spoke to this, is the state's argument, and I think you had indicated to the DNRs that can't be in there. Loso thinks it's arguable, but it needs to be uniform throughout the county. I think it's ultimately the end result.
So if we take it out, can we take it out of zoning and put it in general? Then the DNR can't say anything about it because it isn't their control.
You can do what you want, Mr. Chair.
Careful with that.
Yeah.
You don't know, Kim.
Regards to the question.
Yeah.
I think that should be, how about if we put that in general?
We just can't reference it back to shoreland.
The shoreline, correct.
And I'll verify that on my Friday phone call for you.
Maybe verify that, because I think we need to, these four towns have their own zoning and we have to, they have to know that that the county does shoreline for the state. We have to know they do their own general. So I think we should get, that should be somewhere in our ordinance too. somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's where it is in general, is it says these towns have their own zoning in the general.
It does,
They didn't
okay.
make their own district that says underneath the district, they have their own. It just says the four towns have their own town zoning. So,
Okay,
um,
let's just make sure.
And I don't
that's
know
in
that
there.
I'd list the towns because that number, that, they may change. Yeah, I would just say towns with their own
I
zoning.
would list them.
And then it does
'Cause we can
say,
always add to it. I would list them right now because people then, where do you look that up?
yeah,
So you might as well just put it in there because that'll be the first phone call. Who has their own zoning, who has no zoning?
yeah.
So if you have that in there, I'm good.
And
Then
then,
3 minutes, so don't push it.
you know, it was telling me it was time to stand up. I gotta dismiss it. I can't stand up. It does have a caveat here, unless the town had an ordinance that regulated one of the shoreline standards in a more restrictive manner prior to the county adopting shoreline zoning. I don't know if that applies to any of the towns that have their own zoning or not. It's a question.
I don't think they,
I don't know.
because it would have had to be before 78 or 68.
Right.
And I don't know how long some of those towns have had their own zoning.
Only has 300 feet.
Something.
I think we should, I mean, they don't want it in our part, in the shoreline. So if it's in general, they got nothing to say.
yeah,
And the-
that's where our current maps
I
have
mean,
it.
I think, but we should just reference that because even when I went through Apple, they don't reference that. You have to get a separate permit, from the county for shoreline and stuff. So it gets people, that's where they're
Right.
guessing a little too much,
Yeah.
that you need that extra permit.
Yeah.
And then you get here and then you might need a DNR permit. So I mean, we're sitting here with, the permit process gets pretty crazy sometimes.
Yeah, and that's where how the ordinance currently reads is you would still have to come here for your boathouse permit, but then
Yeah.
you're exempt from 3 of the conditions on there. And so that's why there's many spots that you still have to get the permit from here, but you don't have to follow 3 of the uses. And that's where the DNR is saying, if it's in your shoreline, you're administering that. You can't say you're exempt from these 3 things, these 2, these 4.
yeah.
You have to, once you get your permit from us, you're good and from the county's perspective in the shoreline area. If the town has additional areas that they want to be more restrictive that aren't
It's just like
that
that.
you can't be
Yeah.
due to the DNR standards in NR 115, then that's when,
They
the
can't
town
be
may also have
restrict.
sort of
They could be more
Permit.
restrictive.
They can be more
but not
restrictive,
less.
not less.
in certain areas, yeah.
Yeah, so
Then I have a question under division for other shoreland regulations. That's page 31 or 89. Why did you choose to use like D as substandard lots in the model? That's because minimum lot size, A, B, C, that talks about minimum lot size. D talks about substandard lots. That should be the numbering. It's just a numbering. And the same with planned unit development. That shouldn't be under minimum size lots. That's in the model ordinance. Those are separate things, separate categories. It's just a minor thing, but it just didn't make sense to me that minimum lot size, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess they used to all be combined. I felt that if you're looking at what you need for a minimum lot size, a planned unit development is a way to have different lot sizes than what's in that same section. So I mean, I don't think it has to be in the same section, but I think it is directly related to the lot size, because in a planned unit development, you can have smaller lot sizes than in other areas. But yeah, if you guys think that that's,
I don't know. I just looked at that model. If they want us to go by their model, I just looking at that, it's different than what we have here. The wording isn't different. It's the same stuff. It's just set up differently. It's not that big a deal, but now on that, as long as you're on 31, that sewer lots, we have 10,000 square feet too there.
yep, so we have to have that in our shoreline.
Yeah, we have to have that, don't
But
we?
we can enforce our subdivision countywide, so that's why we changed it in the subdivision. 20,000, but we can't say in our shoreline that we have a 20,000 minimum of sewer lots, because then we're more restrictive in an area that the DNR says you can't be.
Sure.
But that's where that
That's where the
caveat
two
is, you can enforce your subdivision ordinance in that area.
All right. So that explains the substandard lots, planned unit development, okay. Oh. Get into these setbacks here. So page 33, or no, 91. 91. So that has that, and its functional apparatuses were added from the last one.
Yeah, and that's another section that I could,
It's just.
because there's some specific language that was left out of the model ordinance last time, where it's in here as the model, and it's required to be as the model reads. So I can get those specific words. I think like propose maybe was left out. I can highlight those if there's any words that were added back in to be consistent with the model ordinance.
Okay.
It was very minor, but there's some. Yeah, and I guess in the end, this is what's required to be in there, and so I don't know if it'll change anything, but at least just for people to know.
What was?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't anything staff added, it's in the model ordinance.
Okay, so then the next, we're down to exempted structures. That's where the, house, entirely access viewing corridor, blah, 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 blah. I'm on page 92. On the bottom, or the exempted.
So Logan, is that the diagram that we asked or suggested be put in as that ordinary high water mark one?
Correct.
Okay, because I just have that on my notes on the other one.
So under the boathouse part, now we're starting to work with the blue. 14 by 26, that stayed the same, didn't it?
Yep, so that was,
That's what we kind of decided, wasn't it, that they stayed that way? I looked at it.
and I can pull up the document that was requested to show the two different, or the current and proposed. No, or not picture, sorry. Yeah, next one. Which it probably won't, yeah. Be nice if it was side by side, but I don't know if we can. So that's where all the green is recommended staff items to be included. These for discussion, staff,
You're in 92, right?
92, 93, yep.
Yep. Where it says patio doors, fireplaces, features
Yep.
inconsistent.
Well, a boathouse is meant to have anything related to boating, right?
Correct.
So you could store paddle boards in there, you could store life jackets, all of that kind of stuff in there.
Boats.
You could store boats in there. You can store jet skis in there.
Yeah.
But if you choose to have a boathouse that you only wanted to store things like paddle boards and stuff, why couldn't you have patio doors to get that in there?
Sure. And that's the question, without, I mean, we could, if you guys want to have a long discussion or not, I mean, if you're happy with the way the boathouses are right now and want to keep the current language.
Yeah.
Do that. Is fine. And, we can continue to look at boathouses and gather data for you and just keep it the same right now.
Second that.
So.
Yeah.
It's, I mean,
I would too.
instead of going back and forth,
Yeah,
if you guys don't see any issues with the boathouses and you want to keep them the same, just keep them the same.
keep them the same.
Yeah, just so staff's clear, I guess, the reason it gets brought up is due to, us issuing permits and then seeing, things that don't appear to be used for, watercraft or associated materials. And some of these conditions that were proposed, staff feels that that's not going to restrict somebody from using that structure for that use that it's exempted to be in that location for. But these are items that are able to be put in there to just clarify that, because I mean, otherwise it turns into a compliance issue or can turn into a compliance issue on the back end. And then it's tougher to prove that, but that's where this whole section came from, is due to certain circumstances that appears they're starting to move away from what they used to be as a traditional boathouse. And we don't feel like these conditions are saying that you can't have a boathouse anymore. It's just, we're gonna keep them a boathouse instead of the things they may be evolving into. That's why, that's where this all came from. And it could easily turn into more of a compliance issue for us. But that would be something, I guess, that if it's not being requested to look at now, it might be later on if we continue to get complaints for the misuse of a boathouse. So just a clarification.
Is under that too, is F still needed though? That looks like a new language, boathouse excavating to existing slope. Do we need, I know there was issues on East Balsam with a really strong slope and whatnot. I mean, is that some language, something like that necessary where we have extreme slopes? I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing that out there because I know there has been issues with that. I know there's some problems on East Balsam. I don't even know if it was a boathouse. It was just general excavation, but.
I guess as staff, I would recommend it. So then it's clear when somebody comes in for a boathouse permit or if they're reading the ordinance and they know they're going to be on an existing slope of 20%, at least they're then made aware right then that they're going to need further plans. It's not just going to be a administrative permit necessarily.
And that's something I would think you would support too as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah. A lot of the lots left aren't suitable and pose risk.
Right.
So they need a higher level of evaluation and maybe design plans to accommodate the development that's being proposed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to hinder everything. I just think that because I was aware of some of those issues out there, I do think that there might be some good discussion as far as around that.
For that plan, yes, because a lot of the counties I work with, they start at 12% even.
However, I don't, yeah,
They start at a lower threshold, 12 to
definitely not the
20
expert,
is,
just,
you can draw your own up almost, but when you get over the 20, you have to have that certified person to do it and do it. So maybe F should just be left in there. The other ones, if we don't put in 10 feet. What did we have on I though? Was that 14 instead of 10 sidewalls?
It was 14, yeah.
It was 14? Okay,
Should leave it at 14.
yeah, I just circled that, leave that.
Okay.
Then maybe leave the rest out for now and let's see what the public says at our next one. How
What
many,
are we doing with the gable roof part of it? I know we.
leaving it
Leaving it
in there.
flat.
Well,
They can
do
go
a
either.
gable too if they want.
Either or.
But the gable, they just put it down so you can't have a second roof or a second, story on it. That's why they kept the pitch down a bit. Otherwise, if you had a 12, you'd have another room up above. Right. So I don't want a 4, what do you have, 4?
The specific,
So it'd be like 28 inches high is all in the middle.
the specific language would have to change, because this language is saying that they shall have a gabled roof.
Yeah,
We want to have it where if they have a gabled roof, you want to
Yeah, it would
require
be-
a certain
yeah.
pitch, we'll have to change that.
Yeah. And where it says like no retaining walls,
yeah,
that, if needed retaining walls, they need another permit possibly.
because down at the last one, it says mitigation system for capturing all runoff. Well, sometimes retaining walls are needed to help mitigate runoff. So we're kind of cut.
So instead of no retaining walls, if retaining walls needed, I suppose you have to put if needed. That might be another permit. How did we think of?
Well, right now, if we're just dropping it out, it could be, I mean, to me, all that would fall, wouldn't that all fall under if
If
we have a,
Might fall under
a,
F,
a
yeah.
type, a tight
Yeah.
grade, then you've got the whole plan of like, either you can't do it, or if you're doing it, you're doing this, 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 and this.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, just leave it.
I mean, if we're worried about protecting the water resources, let's
Yeah.
focus on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's where that was, to clarify on the front end as well.
Sure.
Yeah, if it's struck, that's fine, but when someone comes in for a permit, they can be notified then that a retaining wall is not part of your boathouse. It's another structure that's not exempt from the setback.
Yeah. Okay. The 14's back, okay. And the open sided, that's you move for that 200 square foot. That just got moved, didn't it?
Yep.
Number 3. Utility 5, those are all exempted structure.
Yeah, I took out the, what was it, the fishing raft one that Supervisor Lee brought up.
Yep.
Yeah, I looked around and it can be exempt because it obviously just calling, or it can be removed because it's specifically calling out, I forgot what 2 rivers for fishing. or
Yeah.
That's right.
that's right.
All right.
The Wolf River and the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
Thing like that, yeah.
Stairway, all these, the blue all stayed the same, didn't it? Where the fence was 15, we left all that in. 2 feet.
That's all from the, same from the other ones.
So here's the other one. Do we do all it's the setbacks, principal structure, accessory? I'm on page 94.
Yep.
Is that the one we were gonna go to 1025? Do we have to have something in there if they do that, an accessory building? That they have to put in their deed, they would never live in it, because that's where some of these guys are putting it 10 feet from a lot line and then sell it, and then somebody wants to put a house in it. You go up here and buy 20 acres for deer hunting, but they want it as tight in the corner as they can. And now the next guy wants to make it a house, so that now all of a sudden it's non-conforming.
Yeah, the change.
There isn't a lot of those. There's a few that I've had to deal with that obviously they wouldn't got variance, so they just didn't say anything then. But,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. If they change the use 10 years from now and the principal structure, now they're not meeting the 10 foot.
they don't meet,
setback.
because it's 5 foot and stuff, because it was an exception.
And that could happen now too, because a lot of our accessory building structures are 5 feet currently. So I don't know if it'll change much in that, but I see what you're saying. And that's when they do come in to change the use, that's when they would be made aware
They would
that
be made aware
the
maybe
building
that
was
way.
built to be an accessory building, not a.
They'd have to do a variance then or something, so we could leave it alone.
You can't.
But if they came for a permit and people explained it to them, that would help maybe too,
Yep.
up front.
Electric.
Does anybody want to change? Who had this one with the numbers? Pam, wasn't that you? Did I have them all the same?
Just made it more consistent. Yeah, that was my,
One of yours?
because it was, if you were on a class 1 lake, it had to be this. If it's on
Yeah.
a class 3 lake, it was this, it's like, that to me made not a logical,
sense.
no sense when it had nothing to do as far as how it affected the water quality. We didn't change the amount of buildings, or whatever, it just was side setbacks. So yes, I don't know if this is the right place to mention it, but I'm gonna follow up on Supervisor Kelly's comment that when we get to our next level of drafts, I didn't realize until she pointed out that the formatting really is pretty jacked up. Is there a way to make sure that it is kind of following a standard formatting? Because you go like E and then A sub versus E, so you've got an E1I. And the main reason to do that is that if somebody's trying to follow through, because if you have an A and a B or an A and an I, where does that reference to when you're trying to read the document? And when sometimes it's A and then AAA versus one. I'm not trying to be picky, but since she brought it out, I think when we go to a next draft, if we could do a standard formatting, I think it would be really helpful and just professional.
Yeah, I think that would be covered once we go to Muni code, but maybe
And it could
not.
be, right.
I'm not sure.
Sure.
But-
Sure. And I know jumping things back and forth and moving them, it's hard that formatting gets all jacked up. So I'm not trying to rip on you. Just now that Supervisor Kelly picked it out, I'm like, oh, yeah.
Showed it to her and
there
she
really
said, "No,
is
I
some-
can't unsee it."
Yep, now I
can't
can
ever-
see it. Now I do think at some point. Thank you.
Oh, my God.
Take the document to a select all. and
Okay.
change.
So we're thinking of leaving that one in there, the 10, 25, 5, and 10. Then they're all the
The
same.
chart, we discussed that last,
Yeah,
if it's a 100-foot lot, you got 25-foot side yard. We got 50 feet in the middle,
oh, God,
that's for a 250-foot lot
yep.
when it was written.
And we didn't want to do 10 because otherwise all the buildings that are 5 foot would really have a mess, huh?
Yeah, that's,
Not conform, yeah. Okay, so that'll stay. Structures in a floodplain, that's whatever. So we're good on that page. 95, 96, we didn't. None of those uses changed, did they? Those permitted uses elevated, that's,
Yeah, that's all straight from our current ordinance.
now some of the mitigation impervious surface stuff is coming up.
So yeah, under one there, that was to clarify to be consistent with the definition in the model.
Up to 300 feet,
Yeah,
okay. That definition, yeah, okay.
and the treated impervious those sections were added to clarify exactly what someone would need to do to be considered treated, which then exempts you from adding that towards your lot. So if you're at 20% from non-conforming or whatever, and you wanted to add more, but you make, 10% of your lot considered treated, where it's all that runoff is truly being treated per these standards, that doesn't count towards your overall allowed impervious surface. And the main thing with that is coming up with
With what the
that standard, I guess. I just wanted to bring that up. Our land use runoff rating right now is based off of
the 2-year 24?
no,
Or a
those
10-year?
are, the actual spreadsheet or Excel sheet is based off of a 25-year, 24-hour, I think. So it's substantial. I mean, it's 5 inches of rain. But these would be, I guess, yeah, that's up for discussion. I just had one that I kind of saw a lot, was a 2-year, 24-hour rain. But I guess if the committee, doesn't have any specific recommendations, I think that would be something that us and Land and Water would discuss for sure, and then maybe come back.
Maybe come back with a number.
Sizing that we would feel comfortable with. Cause it's like, the 5 inches is probably, I don't know, it's tough, cause you want to make sure it's going to handle it all and not overflow when you do get, because we do get 3-4 inch rains. Some, or has been more frequent than
Yeah.
in past years, but also
Go 5, 10, 20, don't they? Usually it's 5, 10, 20.
100.
And the 100-year, it's kind of scary flood one. But that's in the floodplain stuff, isn't it, the 100-year? I remember, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, reference
There's a lot
to
of
that. And that's where we could specifically
Redraft.
reference this chart here. So I mean, because this changes throughout the years. So as long as you say, we wouldn't put an inch number on there, we would say this size storm, because then that would likely
Yep.
keep going up as they have.
Yeah.
When you say on D about a document will be recorded with register of deeds, I'm going to use an example. We had a storm runoff system put in when I was on the lake, that all the rainwater off the roof went down into the rain gutters, and then it went down into an underground system that had this catch basin underground, like a septic tank almost. And then it had an overflow pipe. It could handle so much, and I don't remember what that number was off the top of my head. Are those the type of systems that you're talking about? Would have to be recorded with the register of deeds? I mean, there was a little maintenance that had to happen. You had to go out and check. I'd check once a year just to make sure nothing was clogged so that it was working properly.
Yeah, and that's directly related to that. So once you sell your property and the next person comes in, they may have no idea that's even there. So that's why it's on the deed saying, hey, you have this on your property. It has to be maintained. So everyone's aware of that structure being there.
That's why you got to build your deck bigger or whatever, or a bigger driveway for the impervious surface to get that under the,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, otherwise, like you said, once it fills up, it's not doing anything then, over time, it's going to.
Well, no, it was like a filtration. The University of Minnesota designed it. It had like plastic milk crates put in to the ground, and they had lined it with something, and they made a structure out of these milk crates, and the water went into there and then seeped out. Unless you got a big rain, then it would go into the overflow. But, and that was all that had a design thing that was done, whether Deer Lake Association or Conservancy took that here, or I have no idea.
It's usually on the homeowner to bring it in. The Conservancy just helps pay for it usually.
Yeah, yeah.
And do it, but the homeowner is required to put it on their,
Okay.
you would have been required to get a permit to do it and stuff.
Okay.
You didn't, did you?
I don't know. I don't remember. That was a long time ago. I did put it in my book that I left for the people that bought the house that said, here's what you do. But, so that's what that would mean. Okay.
Well, they have plantings too, don't they, on shorelines? Eric, they have
Yeah,
ones that certain
plantings,
plantings and
yeah.
stuff that you have to maintain.
And for those larger practices that need maintenance, they're there for a really long time. One of the biggest issues we've seen with those structures is proper maintenance for proper
Yep.
function.
Yep.
And it really helps when there's continuity in the discussions and the operation and maintenance plan as that practice changes ownership.
Yep.
And so recording it on the deed and recording that operation and maintenance plan helps provide that continuity. We do that with stormwater and erosion control practices on subdivisions and things like that, or try to. It's one of those items to ensure their long-term functionality.
I bet most people don't know that.
If it's cost shared, they should. A lot of like yours, if it's cost shared and
It
stuff,
was.
it should have been registered. Because the shoreline, the DNR requires that too when they do cost sharing and those. Because there's some people that went in there and actually tore it all out.
Yeah, and
That.
And I would say, depending on how some of those practices come about or the funds used to implement them, they may or may not be good.
Usually they want records so they can see if it worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they would come
They
out and
want to
check.
check it themselves.
Yeah, they would come out and check.
Sure. To
Every few
record it,
years, just to see.
Who's they?
Deer Lake Conservancy.
on that, the lake, because anybody who put in that, grant money and stuff usually wants a 5-year or whatever, 3-year.
Yep.
They come in back and check it to see if it's
They have a
gonna
person,
work.
that's all she does, is work on those projects around the lake. I shouldn't say all, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Sure.
So now this mitigation, now let's jump into that
Hang on.
mitigation.
Back up a minute, sorry. So just give me an example of what on D, What is an enforceable implementation schedule? What's enforceable?
That it must be cleaned from debris every year or,
And enforce how? I mean, I guess that's, so as far as, does that mean that, zoning or land and water is, again, the whole go back into compliance, and then if they don't do it, is it fining? I mean, I'm just, so I just like, these words, they sound good, but what do they really look like in real life?
yep, that's what it would be, is if someone's not following their enforceable schedule, then that.
How do you know they're not?
Compliant or
Yeah.
complaint driven.
If the whole side of your yard blows out because of that.
Or failure of structure.
Failure.
And a lot of times in those operation and maintenance schedules, there's pretty set dates every 5 years. You need to mow them to take the woody vegetation away because roots aren't good in embankments,
Sure.
things like that. 10 years, this. It's identified in that operation and maintenance plan when a.
Of whatever you put in there.
Operation and maintenance plan is drafted and put together. Does that help?
A little bit. I mean, yeah, I guess I was just looking at, what happens when they don't?
Yeah, it would be a compliance citation. I think there is a specific, I believe there's a specific citation in our current fee schedule for it, but I'll check on it.
Thank you. I'm just curious. It really is like.
Nothing's gonna happen unless somebody calls and complains.
Or it
Because it blows out. Well, how would they even know if it blew out?
All depends how bad. All depends how bad it blows
Half
out.
your yard is gone, yeah, in a big rain.
Well, yeah.
Okay. All right,
Thank
that
you.
mitigation section now, you have this point system or whatever, you have a handbook.
Yeah, so nothing was removed from there. There was a point option added. Staff felt like this would give the property owner maybe more of an opportunity to complete their mitigation as well as another option, not that it has to be used, but instead of, somebody using the pre-post calculation, which normally it requires quite a bit of, expertise. If you're not at all familiar with it, you would look at the spreadsheet and probably not know exactly how to use it. But this would allow where if somebody's truly adding a small shed, but they're over 15%, they say, okay, well, decrease my viewing corridor by 5 feet or whatever to fulfill that point system, they could do that. Doesn't have to be in here. I just felt like it was a opportunity to have the property owner have some ability to do that mitigation as well, rather than most property owners aren't going to be installing their own infiltration pit quite a few, I guess, probably would do their own rain garden maybe depending on the person, but it just opens up a little more avenue for someone that says, yeah, I have no problem letting 10 feet of my buffer go back to natural as long, for getting this extra impervious surface on my property.
So
That'd be all up to them.
I'm looking now back on page 64 of the packet on the definition of mitigation. And it says means balancing measures that are designed, implemented, and function to restore natural functions and values that are otherwise lost through development and human activities. I'm not sure
Like the definition? Is that what?
Yeah, kind of, because, okay, we have mitigation options and a point system. Restore.
Well, that's the ones we're gonna ask these guys when they come.
Okay.
Which works for them. I think that's what we gotta, that us sit here and beat it to death.
Exactly.
We need like John to come in and say, okay,
Yeah,
this kind of a system works, this one, this does,
Okay.
here's how I mitigate things. That might help us a lot than have us sit here and beat it to
because
death.
I never knew we had a mitigation handbook before.
Nope,
We don't.
that would be
No.
directly related to this.
To that, that's why I asked that.
We would probably, we're currently working on that. We would also have it, even if this doesn't get implemented, just because we get asked all the time, what is an infiltration pit? What is a rain
Yeah.
garden? So we're trying to get a handbook together so we can people can see it online, we can hand it to them and it'll
Gotcha.
be a lot a lot more clear for them rather than trying to explain it. Because it can be even sometimes difficult to explain depending on how the conversation goes.
System that Logan is proposing is simple and it is easily interpreted and it provides really good guidance on approved practices for mitigation, ones that are effective at restoring and capturing surface water runoff, mitigating effects of impervious surface, things like that. So that's the kind of things that handbook would provide guidance on. It seems in my research of this that this is an approach that many other counties are adopting and it seems to be effective.
And for the discussion, is Mr. Hall there, he usually uses our land use runoff rating calculation, I believe, and that's still in here. So nothing.
This is just another option.
This is just,
You're just throwing in another option.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as him providing input on it, I mean, he may well have some input on it, but it also is, I don't know if he would necessarily, he could be the one that uses it if someone wants to expand their shoreline buffer and he's the one planting the plants, but it's not gonna impact him unless he chooses to be impacted by it by choosing another option, is I guess the clear taking point there. It's just an addition. It's not requiring anything extra from what currently is being
Yeah.
allowed for that.
But I mean, that's when they would come in and see if it would work. So,
Yeah, if a property owner says, well, none of this works for me, I don't want to increase my buffer or do anything, so then they would likely probably go to a landscaper to say, hey, I need this size infiltration pit or whatever.
yep, okay. Land disturbance. So that was with the newer definition, but then that just fits. We have it within the buffer zone exempt, and is that what's in there, the riprap, public road bridges activities, all that stayed the same? Just that red was added?
No, the green was
association?
added.
Yeah, the green was added, the
green was
red.
added.
The red is required or is in the model ordinance.
But the roads in that are exempt, aren't they? So like riprap can be done by permitted activity, associated restoration, that stuff can be added. It was added on here, but
Yeah, so that's, if you look in the model, if you have the model ordinance in your under filling and grading, it
Those are in there.
specifies certain general requirements in that. So that's where the biggest difference is. Land disturbances within the vegetative buffer zone prohibited. So that's the 35-foot area there. Whereas right now, there's nothing in your ordinance that specifically lays that out. But that would be a clarification for what would be allowed under the land disturbance permit. And then that's when it goes into, they're prohibited except for the following: an exempt structure. So like if somebody has a non-conforming dwelling and they're rebuilding it and it's within that 30, well, I guess, yeah, it could be within 35 feet. Land disturbance would be covered underneath that specific area, but what it would change is somebody wishing to fill and grade, 20 feet off their shoreline. That wouldn't be allowed unless it's meeting one of these criteria here. Like a riprap project is specifically exempted.
So this filling and grading has that 20% in there too, so that refers back to that other one that had it.
Yeah, so that's where
So that helps a little too.
currently we have it set up where if it meets the criteria in 1 through 3, you have to have a filling permit, which is much more expensive and in depth. Whereas 4, if you're below that criteria, a landscaping permit may be required.
Okay.
Yeah, or shall be met.
Yeah. So then on page 102, we added the bare ground and stuff, these site plans.
Yeah, they had some
Temporary ground
conditions
cover.
in here that they said, you know, can be applied, and that's how it reads. They may be applied, so it's not saying on every grading project these are gonna be applied to, but it's just available there that, or make them aware that, you know, these types of conditions may be attached to your filling and grading permit.
Now, non-conforming, these are all, that's quite a bit of. It's moved. Page 45. Or 103.
Yeah, so I think,
It's just the, this all stayed pretty much the same, didn't it?
yep. Yeah, and I don't,
All that were in there, I think, if I remember. Till we get down to the maintenance repair.
yeah, the one maintenance and repair wasn't in the current ordinance. It's listed in the model ordinance. So I added that in there.
And that's, so that added the 10-year thing. And
Yeah, that's
okay,
discussing the violation or a structure that was in violation.
yeah. Okay. It used to be 50% of the building's appraised value in 1972. We could go back to that one again.
That's still how the floodplain is.
Yeah, oh my God. Okay, any questions on that? Then at the bottom of that, one, just said, their own zoning, so that had to come off. Okay. And the next page, that part was too, that didn't change. Except for the towns with their own zoning company. Next was the 42 just for reference. That stayed, page 107 stayed. 108 is just the town deal that we have to find out where we can put it. Administrative provisions didn't change. R2,
So Kim,
page 54.
in my notes on the last one that we went through, underneath the licensed travel trailers, parks, campgrounds thing, it says Kim question mark these 313. You're not questioning them no more.
What page are you on? Which one? Go back.
So it would be 106 on the new. Underneath license G.
That 5 acre and 2 acre deal, yeah, I just got,
So 1, 2, and 3, are you not questioning those anymore?
I just
had it in my notes, so that's.
You
why.
missed it.
I had that marked just because it didn't read right to me. How's that?
Does it read right now?
No. But it's working. It says the minimum trailer is 5 acres, but then it says the requirements, boom, 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 retain one form or another. You need at least 2 acres
For each camping
for
unit.
each camping unit. But then it says the maximum number of units shall be 100.
Right?
Well, how do you get 100? You'd have to have 500 acres. If you have to have 5 acres and now 2 acres, even at 2 acres, you'd have to have 200 acres.
Yeah.
So that's what those three
That's
did.
why I put it on my notes on the last one.
That,
so
that's why it just didn't read right.
we were still good.
What campground has 2 acres for?
They wouldn't. Yeah,
They wouldn't.
you couldn't have 2 acres, cause then if you go into it, the size is only 40 by 20 or whatever, 15 and 15 feet apart. So how do you do that? You can have. So those
yeah.
three might be something, you know what I mean? So you look at then the size of it.
Minimum dimensions of a camping site are 50 by 100,
Yeah,
but they have to be at least 2 acres up here, it
Yeah.
says. Yeah, that needs to be looked at.
so I mean,
Or yeah, it's indicating there has to be 2 acres per unit.
yeah,
Each unit doesn't have to be on its own 2 acres. It's just, I think it's more of a density thing where spreading out that, well, all the campers may be in one area, but then the campground would also have an open area for that campground. I guess I wasn't involved with this going in there, but that's how we're currently
looking at it.
administering it is, it does seem weird. And I don't know if the minimum of 5 acres is to prevent, somebody from I don't know, I guess, as far as stating that they're a manufactured home park, even though they're only have 2 of their own personal trailers on there. I don't know exactly where the 5 acres comes in, cause yeah, the way it reads is on a 5 acre manufactured or travel trailer park, you could only have 2 units because you're only gonna have 4 acres or whatever, you'd be short.
Yeah, 4 parcels, so. This, it's in shoreline, so I don't know if it was used to protect or what, but I read it a couple times and it didn't read right.
Can you still?
And it's still, to me, it goes from 5 acres to 2 acres and then 50 by 100.
Mhm.
And then you can have up to 100, can't, because you can only have 2 units per acre, so, yeah. So maybe we gotta clean that language up a
I
little.
don't think the map is supposed to work up and down as total. It's
Yeah.
different items. Basically, you only want a size of 5 acres as your smallest camp.
Yeah,
But of that, you can only, of a large one or that size, you can only have 2 acre lots on it, so.
but
It's not supposed to.
so you can read around that pretty good, because of that 50 by 100, you can put quite a few in there, and then pretty soon, yeah. I don't know, it just doesn't read very clear to me, so. And that was on a good day.
I have it on my paper as Kim with the question.
Yeah. Sit next to me and see all that shit highlighted.
Right.
All right, that's something we'll have to kind of look at. So otherwise, yeah, not to run it so long that we. Let's get moved down. So what did we get? Have we got some more emails and things? I think we'd like to get those kind of in the file to read before the next one too, to see what people are asking, you know, like John's and all that. We kind of compile all those. All these emails we're getting, let's get those and get them kind of compiled. So
John's was submitted under public comment though, so it doesn't automatically go in anyway.
it doesn't automatically. That's why I'm saying we got to save some of this because we have one from a lake association and
That Ronnie Hanson.
Yeah, we're saved, the public comments are saved and everything. And
For
noted,
these.
For the rule of words, they're not read into the minutes.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I would think if we get all those,
And you
and get them sent to us, maybe if somebody asked for them, I could send it to them.
they've been sent to the supervisors, correct? They're automatically
Oh.
sent to you, yes.
Check your email.
Everyone that goes to that public comment inbox.
How about if they go just the zoning?
Not a public comment thing.
Or zoning could.
Or
send
if
it
they
to-
want it as a public.
They would direct the person who sent it to zoning to say, hey, send your comments.
But you get emails, don't you? But it isn't.
Most of them, all of them that have been requested to be public comment, I think they were already received by Mo before I got them, or we got them at the same,
Or got it at the
different
same
route.
time.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's
if
not.
I get one that I haven't received from Mo, then I would send it to Siobhan or Mo. as a
Okay.
public.
I mean, we get ones to the county clerk inbox, but I reply to them and I say, if this is for a public comment to supervisors, please send to public comment. Or
Okay.
email.
I'm just wondering if we're getting some other ones somewhere else that we can get them all. You know, like if I get one from somebody.
Then you reply to them and tell them to send it public. countywi.gov. And then we'll all have it, Kim.
Beating around the bush what I want here. That's all right. I know a way to get it. All right, my God. I lost no, I found it. So just for reference to them, in 2024, there was 33 boathouse permits taken out and 7 bunkhouse permits were taken out. And then accessory buildings was 272. So that's kind of what we're dealing with.
Is that just?
The boathouses, yeah, they went through and so the accessories, they don't know how many of those might have a bunkhouse above, if they were a garage or not, but just accessory structures was 272.
That's all lake related?
No.
No, that's the whole county.
Like,
But that's just in that part, land use stuff. That's not sewers and everything else. So I mean, but they're dealing with a lot of permits.
You don't have a boathouse, that's not on the lake, Tracy.
I know I can.
But
She might.
I can't, I can't. No.
doghouse, boathouse, put whatever name you want.
Doghouse works for me, yeah.
Just said, they looked that up, so we should just say that's what they're dealing with. So we did those administrators update.
Don't have a lot. We're working on the financial policy and the procurement policy right now. Getting the budget calendar solidified and almost, that should be out shortly. Working with that, I'll follow up with the DNR Sue on my Friday call with a couple questions that were brought up during this meeting. And then just for clarification, then we'll wait to send the draft to DNR until after the meeting of the 19th.
I would think so.
Okay. And then we'll wait for their comments back and then hold the public hearing once we get those
Because it could be,
comments back.
we know they're gonna be out 90 days or whatever.
Yeah, and I'll check on the timeline on that so we can
Yeah.
solidify our dates on that coming back.
Okay. Did Sarah leave an update for us?
Did. She left it for Eric.
She did. Explain why she's gone now.
Shit for,
Gotta be in Rochester, so
yeah, she's on the road.
she's just worried about the snow and rain.
Right. Well, just a couple items here. First pertaining to land and water, we have our annual tree sale going on right now. And we usually kick that off after the first of the year and it runs through the end of April. Our tree handout day is April 25th this year. To this point, we've gotten 260 orders and 7 of, I think, our 14 species or so are sold out. And we're aiming for another 17 to 18,000 trees sold again this year with the addition of some native seed. So great program. We reach a lot of citizens with that program.
So Eric, I'm one of those that usually orders too, but when I get into this to order,
Yeah.
they're sold out. So is that only because you guys get a certain amount and that's why they're, I mean,
Yeah, so we're somewhat limited as to what the nurseries can provide,
oh, gotcha.
but we also pre-order based on quantities we can
In the
feasibly
past.
sell. If something sells out quickly, we do take the opportunity to reach out to the nurseries and try and get more, but things go fast.
Yeah, they do.
And at some points in time, we just can't simply get any more. We have to order our trees in late summer the year before. So we're doing our pre-ordering or earmarking the trees that we want in September. Just September. So,
Exactly.
Every time I look, it's like sold out.
Get it
Yes,
in.
I'm not getting hold of it.
gotta get there sooner.
I know.
As soon as you get that notice, Tracy. I know.
Next item, Land and Water just closed their recruiting for our summer interns. We had 13 applicants and wonderful applicants. Our decision will give 7 the opportunity to interview. Land Information is also pursuing a GIS intern for the summer. This has been approved and will happen through an agreement with DNR to fund that position for that particular work, and it's budget neutral. The last item, Sarah wanted me to mention that the next meeting, you'll be introduced to Dylan Barr, and he'll talk about compliance and give you an update on his projects and accomplishments.
And who's Dylan?
Dylan is the compliance.
That was
So-
my question.
Yeah.
But now it's happening.
Clarification, Eric, when you say next meeting, do you mean the next one with the public input or do you mean like the first one in March?
Gosh, I bet it's the first one in March.
First one in March.
Okay.
Yes,
Like-
we'll just leave that meeting as that one topic.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
put that on the
Yeah,
work
it's-
plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have unless there's other questions.
Just I don't know who else. I asked him for, from that water quality. I'm gonna get
Yeah,
a hard copy of that.
I've got some.
Anybody else wants one?
Got them here.
Yep.
Oh, you do have some?
Yep, we had some printed and they're available. Shabana's got them there. We only made 4 copies, but we can
I
certainly
asked
get.
him, I get one,
Like,
for sure. Then if the rest of you all.
Do you want the fancy pamphlet too?
Yes. Because then if nothing else, if everybody doesn't want, we should put one in Brad Olson's mailbox.
and that's a,
She has.
But
that's a copy of the slideshow from the presentation on the undeveloped lake study that Colton and delivered at the meeting. And if there are more copies wanted, let me know or raise your hand and I'll.
because this has, hopefully it has these graphs in here with the lakes, doesn't it? Oh, yeah,
You want one, Dave?
the rate.
I'll just
Yeah, so it does have the lake. I just thought that was interesting to have that.
And Caitlin printed enough. That's great.
You've got quite a few here. so-
Oh, excellent. All right, good. Well, there's more on the corner of the table if needed.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
And then Brad's inbox if you'd like.
Yeah, I think we should. If he ever comes and fix stuff.
Are we having a meeting March 19th again too? That's what it says in here?
No, that one, we're not, that, as we get there, we'll see. Probably not.
I'm not gonna be, I'm gonna be out of this, gone.
Can't go on vacation.
Then we'll have it. It'll go faster.
Vacation till this stuff is taken care of.
It'll go faster.
I had that bubble above my head. I'm like, who's gonna say it?
Who's not gonna be here? What, as long as we have a quorum, you and you can't be here. Okay. So the next meeting is, I think we'll worry about just the next one. The 1st of March, we'll have to work through the rest, if you get any public hearings or anything. We'll work, to see what's gonna be on that one. But the next one is gonna be on the 3 ordinances that we have: subdivision, general, and shoreline. And it's gonna be kind of an open one, so it's gonna be a work one. I think almost like an ad hoc committee forum or something that we can all talk.
It will not be noted as a public hearing.
And then,
No.
I have it
Yes.
listed currently as a public input. And I did put specifically that the chair has the right to.
Put input information, how's that? Instead of just input, we want some information out of it. is what
Well,
I'm
yeah,
saying.
leave it.
Leave it.
All right,
not the 19th of February.
yeah,
You're gonna say something about the chair has the
The
power
right to
to.
suspend.
No.
So if somebody goes on for
Perfect.
Kim can step in and say, okay, that's.
so I have
we
to
gotta-
borrow your gavel.
Thank you.
You can use it, you can have it.
No, I just think
I don't use it much.
I want to keep it down to that we don't have arguments.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
Which is
If-
why
if
you
two
will
people get
have
in an
the-
argument, we gotta just say, well,
You'll have the.
keep it
right
as
to
half
suspend.
formal, very formal.
You can treat it as
Is there
a
a second
public
one?
comment, but longer time frame.
Right.
Well, that we can ask questions as we're going through it again.
There is no time restraint.
There'll be a.
That's why it's a public input.
Yeah, it'll be more dialogue. I mean, I think that'll get us through it a little better, because if you had John try to explain his letter, he could be up here for half an hour, but he might be there, half an hour might work.
Well,
better
yeah,
for
and
us.
that might be needed. I mean,
Yeah.
we just don't know.
But you don't want to say you got 5 minutes and go like, no, I'll hit 2 topics.
Yeah.
Eric, can we put a time limit on that portion of the meeting and then have a line item that we solidify what the draft will be, so I can get that out to, that staff get it out to DNR then after that meeting? If there's something you want
What's
to
it
change.
take us to go through that subdivision in that one? I don't know if we'll have a lot of questions. It's gonna be more shoreline.
Right, and that's the only one we have to send it
Do we want to
to.
put it just till 11 o'clock? 2 hours?
And then if we are shorter than that, that's fine, and then just,
Sure.
we have a line
I
item
think
under
in
that.
2 hours, do you
So
think?
we don't even have to put a time. We can just put a.
I don't
second
know if we
item.
have to put a time.
No, we can just put a second item to go through again, the ordinance.
Just to make sure we have.
Just so he can, so whoever can keep his notes, yeah, that we're not changing it, get down to just those few
Pretty good
things.
notes, so I can.
Okay. I don't know if we'll do it. We'll try to do, we'll try to be done by noon or whatever, same as we are now, but some of the discussions, like I said, it might take him a half hour to explain some of this. And if it does, it does.
Well, we want the clarity. That's the whole,
That's, yeah,
it's like us guessing what he's trying to interpret as like,
Yeah, of what they're looking at too, so.
yeah, do we need a lunch break in there? Cause it kind of sounds like we might need it.
He doesn't want to work over for.
If we get to that.
And
Today was good though,
in
actually.
California, we can go till 2 o'clock since
Oh.
that'll be noon until.
So I was right last time, 1:45.
Yeah, thank goodness Chris said something or we.
You can
still
always
would be
say
here.
45 minutes on your own if we have to. I think it's gonna. How's that?
You could recess for 45 minutes
Yeah.
and come back if you
And come
need it.
back if we have to.
You can't get to-
I think we'll do it because there's a lot of it hasn't changed greatly, I don't think. It's more their explanation of how they want to do it, which would be great to have. So.
Yep.
All right. Litigation update. I bet you there's zero. No, there is.
No update. You stole my thunder.
I thought he was gonna get up and give a big speech.
No update.
Have you been to St. Croix County
Uh,
lately? Or look,
I was there not too long ago, yes.
who's retiring?
Judge Black.
Hey,
Oh, really?
The
sometime
10th of
this summer.
never.
this summer. So,
Oh,
so what do you think that does to ours? Called a restart.
It's gonna go
That's
way to the
right.
bottom again.
It's gonna take him 3
Yeah.
years to retire.
Way
Yeah.
at the bottom.
It's gonna take him 3 years. to
Unbelievable.
retire.
As I said, 10th never.
You gotta warn me next time so I don't take your thunder.
No, I know.
Kim is quick on some things.
Motion we adjourn.
Celebrating, but they still wouldn't let.
I'll second.
see it. All those in favor? Aye.
Good job, Sharon.
That's my main job here.
Hey, Kim, I won't be here next meeting.